That's what I'm talking about. Welcome to another important episode of Cause I Wanna, where Jimmy and I are going to be on here taking your calls and talking a little bit tonight about the Democratic Party, about Biden as a nominee. Ooh, and I need to mute the live show so that you don't hear me saying the exact same thing 20 or 30 seconds later. So welcome, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Jimmy will be back up here at the camera and everything here in just a minute or so. We put this together pretty quickly. As a matter of fact, neither one of us were planning on going live, but we sat down and we watched President Biden's press conference, and it went about as I would have expected. And there have been a number of people expressing their concerns and calling for him to drop out of the race. He has said that he won't, and he repeated that several times here, although he did at least include one caveat that if they came to him and told him you can't win and somebody else can, that under that scenario, he would drop. But he also mentioned, like many of us, that he doesn't have a great deal of confidence in the polls. And I don't either. Worldwide polls, I have numbers of problems with. If you take a look at the polls for what was supposed to happen in the election in France last week and compare that to what actually happened, it seems that nobody had any good polling data at all. And while there has been a mixed bag of polling data in 2016, 2020, even Biden put this in, noting that, hey, how much do you trust polls? I'm looking at chat and somebody's like, the cutoff should be 65. If you retire and get Social Security, then you should run the president. It doesn't make any sense to me. So first of all, ageism isn't going to work. It's a big mistake. There are 80 and 90-year-olds that are perfectly fine, and then there's others who aren't. But so Jimmy's here now, and as I was saying, we watched this press conference, and the first thing that struck me is he walks out and talks about the NATO meeting that he just got back from, and gives an update and talks about the importance of it. And it's about what I would expect from, an 82-year-old president. He presented some facts. He stumbled over some stuff. And then he started taking questions from the reporters. Now, when this happened, the first thing that caught my eye and ear is that he pulls out a notepad type thing, and he's got a list of people whose questions he's going to take in a specific order. What that means is he knows what the questions are going to be that these individuals are going to ask, and he's prepared for it. And it's very frustrating to hear him get facts correct and be able to competently talk about particular issues like, hey, let me tell you, what my thoughts are with regard to the war in Ukraine and Putin and stuff like that. And then hear him mistakenly refer to Zelensky as Putin or Putin as Zelensky. And then when called out by a reporter in that very question about that, and then being asked if Kamala Harris is capable of defeating Trump, it's completely understandable to me how and why he could put a sentence together where he refers to Trump as his VP pick. Because in his head, he's picked Kamala, and he thinks that she can beat Trump. And so, boom, your head just swifts a couple. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't care. It'd be like, well, he misspoke, we all misspoke. But if you're responding to questions about how you confused the names of two world leaders, and you refer to your own vice president as Trump, even though everybody knows what you meant, and then as the press conference went on, there were a number of other gaffes like that, where he said, I was told not to go to Asia. I mean, Europe. And some of them were corrected like that, and some of them weren't. And so there's at least one person who showed up in chat who suggested that, oh, Matt has said there's no sense in having him drop out of the race, and yet he's put together this thing tonight. Well, first of all, I don't seem to have said what you think I said, but also I don't know how you know that I'm here in preparation to call for Biden to step out. Maybe Jimmy's going to call for Biden to step out, and I'm here to battle Jimmy. Maybe
I am.
Nobody is. Maybe we both are. Maybe my mind has been changed. Maybe there's a lot more to this. And so for clarity, I wasn't in any way in the past saying that it would be a mistake for Biden to drop out. What I said is I haven't seen data suggesting that it would be the best idea. And as the sitting president, he has advantages that others don't. And there was one question that he was asked today that I've heard him give what I think are the monumentally wrong answer to a number of different things on this. But near the end of the press conference, he was asked if somebody showed you statistics saying that Kamala has a better chance of winning than you do, would you drop out under that scenario? And his answer was no. And I think that was the right answer, which I'll explain in just a second. But then he followed it up. And he followed it up with basically saying that what would make him drop out is if they told him that he couldn't win. And if you take that and listen to it charitably, let's imagine Biden's polling data shows that he has a 70% chance of winning, and Kamala's polling data shows that she has a 74% chance of winning. That would be a scenario, holy crap. That would be a scenario where the polling data would show a higher percent chance of winning for Kamala, and yet it would probably still be a mistake for him to drop out, because with a 70% chance of winning, he could win, and then you could potentially get Kamala for 8 years afterwards if you wanted to, or whatever else. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but when significant portions of your party, and he was like, oh, hey, when we get to the convention, if they say they don't want me to run, then that'll just be it. The people get to say. And so the question is, Jimmy and I have been talking back and forth for a week or so. And it's one constant, or the constant kind of two-part question is, where are you at on whether or not he will drop out? And where are you on whether or not he should drop out? And I'm now at about 75 to 80% that he should, but I'm still only maybe 55 to 60% that he actually will. And the more important thing is that the way this happens has to be done right, or him dropping out won't benefit anybody. Now that we're both here and I've rambled and vamped for a couple minutes,
I've got a minute or two ramble and vamp.
Yeah, where are you in the woodshed, and what's your couple minutes of the post press conference?
Yeah, so I will tell you. So I almost want to hit a couple of things for transparency before, because I think it matters, and there are some people who, if I don't mention this, will think it could undermine it. So a couple things. First of all, I posted 3 days ago that I think Biden will actually drop. Not only do I think he will drop, so I was already over 50% before the press conference and before the George Stephanopoulos interview, that he would drop, and that he would drop before the month is over. And I actually said, if not the week, meaning this week. And I'm really glad that I did that, because immediately the day after which happened, they had the letter to Congress where he said, I'm not going anywhere. And then somebody immediately went, this aged poorly, when I said by the end of the month, and they thought one day covered that, which was just, I love being on the internet. So total transparency, I've always thought he should drop. So I do want to make sure that's out there. And in fact, my best argument for why he should drop existed before the debate, existed in the primaries, and my best reason for it is actually still my best reason. But now there are new reasons. There are gooder, I'm going to say to be stupid, gooder reasons for a lot of people, or at least reasons that appeal to a larger mass of people. And I'm definitely going to talk about that best reason before we jump in there. But I also want to point out for this stream, because I think we're going to get certain types of calls, and I'm excited to have those calls. I am already anticipating, because of the way I've had this argument now 100 times in in big screen to this VR app I use. I'm not going to entertain arguments about whether or not it is fair that he is being called to drop. I probably don't think it is fair, and yet still think he should drop. And then now moving into something that's a little bit more subjective to what actually just happened. Matt kind of touched on it. I want everybody to be real. There is no definitive data. We can try our best to form an opinion based on the data that does exist. And I think that I could defend my position as the best data-driven position. However, there's no way to actually predict what's going on. I think one of Biden's really weak moments during that is a moment that I also think is weak when other people bring it up. The point is true, but it's weak. And that's to bring up that other polling has been bad in the past. Presidential polling has been kind of bad, not really so much on popular vote. In fact, it often gets the popular vote exactly correct. Political polling often is pretty bad, though 2022 was actually the most accurately polled in, I think it was 30 years. But that 2022 didn't include the president. However, there is other polling you can look to, and if you actually look over the last several decades, you can go, oh, here's the polls that actually showed whether there was an unforeseen problem or not, and everyone just ignored. Enthusiasm polls, those actually do affect things. Demographic polls, those affect things, and certain levels of local polling in swing states affect things. And right now, the fact that it is close, when you have the guy who overturned Roe v. Wade and normalized authoritarian speaking from the presidential pulpit versus Joe Biden, who, I admit it, is old, the fact that it is close is a problem. And this gets me to my best reason why Biden should have dropped all along. Donald Trump and Joe Biden are basically tattoos on each other's asses. In other words, anybody who feels not anybody, but many people who feel like, God, I just want to move on from X, make X either president, and it includes the other one. So if Biden becomes president, the people who really want to move on from the Trump years still perceive we're in some version of the Trump years, or that the Trump is still a factor, and vice versa. People who are like, I just want to move on from Trump, even see Biden as this is the best I can do in the meantime. Trump's still here, or I just said the same thing twice in a row. You know what I meant to do. Luckily, I'm not running for president. I'm clearly too old. But Biden is a tattoo on Trump's ass. Trump is a tattoo on Biden's ass. They are linked for the eternities now. And a new actual ticket, I think, would be the most energizing and motivating thing that they could have done all along. But now there's a clear other reason why I think he should drop. And that right now, with polls being so close, in those polls that actually do matter, something crazy, energizing, and exciting, like an open convention that is preceded by debates amongst the people who want to be the president, where they then do almost a reality show level, because that's where we're at, and it sucks and it's stupid and it's not fair. Here's them doing their battle, and now the delegates vote on the basis of what feedback we've gotten from people and how these debates went, and then you form the ticket that way. So that's kind of my position. I don't think I missed anything. I gave myself a couple little notes, but I went totally off script for the whole thing. So yeah, anybody who wants to call and just say it's not fair, you're right. So just avoid that one. Also, we're not trying to have 100 people who all just say, I think Biden should drop. I would like to see people call in who want to defend that he should not drop. I'll even add a couple of lines so that can happen. Because right now it's, I think, a lot of people saying Biden should drop.
Yeah. By the way,
anyway, that was my little ramble.
For the person I banned in chat, okay, cool. I didn't name this thing, by the way. I didn't name this "Should Biden Drop." Didn't even know it was named "Should Biden Drop," but it's a perfectly reasonable question. And the thing is that, you know, there's already been people, well, one individual, who's gone now. So goodbye, Mr. X.
Mr. X.
Biden hasn't been my preferred candidate since about, I don't know, 2000. And I remember watching Biden on Bill Maher and going, this is the guy that I'd like to be president. And it didn't happen. And I was perfectly happy for him to be vice president. I was fine with Obama. See, I'm messing up names. I must be old and have problems. I was fine with Obama. My preferred candidate after Obama was Elizabeth Warren, followed by Bernie Sanders, followed by Joe Biden. I think RFK Jr. is a lunatic, and I mean, just monumentally wrong on a number of different things. There are other third-party candidates that I just wouldn't have anything to do with. So to answer a couple of questions right off the bat, Biden wasn't my first choice. If he stays in the race, I will vote for him. No doubt about it. I'm going to be voting for blue and the Democrat. And that's what I've been saying all along, because we're not voting for an individual. We're voting for a party and a platform. The only concern that I have about Biden is whether or not he is the candidate with the best chance of ensuring that Trump loses. That is, and I don't know. And he pointed out during his press conference that polling data isn't necessarily trustworthy. And, as Jimmy's pointing out, it was 2022 was really accurate, but the recent polls on the French election were definitely not accurate. That caught everybody by surprise. And I don't know how to do it when, you've got polling data that shows Trump and Biden in a virtual tie at 46, 47%. And then another poll that's showing that Kamala's got maybe a 49%. So she's got a slight edge. Is somebody monkeying with the numbers, whatever else. It's all a gamble. And so I'm in agreement with Jimmy that at the convention, I think I would like to see an entirely new foundation and slogan. I think the slogan should be clean sweep, because right now we have the Republicans control the House. And so even though AOC initiated impeachment papers against Alito and Thomas, Supreme Court justices, nothing's going to happen. It can't happen. Like, even if she moved for a privileged vote, they could then just table it because they have control of this. And I've talked about on the hang up last night about how that's not posturing. What AOC did is not the equivalent of, let me put in a flag burning amendment to please my constituents. This was something that was the right thing to do, and it exposes who's preventing us from doing the right thing. And so I'd love to have the Democratic National Convention happen and have them say, we've decided that we're going to have an open convention. And the reason why is this. It's not because we don't have confidence ourselves in President Biden's ability to lead. He's demonstrated repeatedly that he has the ability to lead. And it's not because we have concerns necessarily about his age. What we're doing is responding to our base, and our base has concerns about Biden's ability to lead, and our base has concerns about Biden's health. And even though we understand where that's coming from, and no matter who thinks that's even though we understand where it's coming from, and no matter who might think that this is not the case, we have a duty under the Constitution to represent our constituents. And if a good portion of the party is not confident in the party's direction because of who we have as the leader, then we need to consider whether or not we have a new leader. And so we're going to have an open convention. It's going to include Joe Biden. And when we're done, we will have a nominee. It may be Biden, it may not, but everybody in this convention and everybody who's a part of the Democratic Party and everybody who's out there wanting to stop Trump has to come together, because we need a clean sweep. We need to control not just the White House. We need to control the White House, the House, and the Senate, because you need all of those together in order to try to fix the broken and corrupt Supreme Court that is giving Donald Trump a get out of consequences free card for nearly everything. That's where I'm at right now. This is not about me calling for Biden to step down. This is about me calling for the Democratic National Convention to have an honest, accurate convention, to do what they're supposed to do in representing their constituents. And if it turns out that Biden is the nominee, then Biden's the nominee and we go with it. because we're going for a party and a party platform and not a personality.
Yeah, the only note I want to add on there is I'm glad you brought up the French election, because actually I see this as a lesson as not dismissing the polls, because right now we look, what did the polls say and what was the reality? Polls said that the right would win. Did the right win? No, they did not. Or did they? They won the first round. In fact, to me, this is a point of, imagine if we had a fake election on Monday and then they went, guys, sorry, there was something wrong, so we're going to redo it Monday, but here were the results, and Trump won if we kept that one, but we have to redo it for some reason. And then the next week we did it again. Whatever polling you had leading up to them, there was literally a reaction to this polling and this first round where people reacted to that, and they ended up saving it. They have some combination of it's something similar to ranked choice voting and stuff, and where it's because their system is actually set in place to not let, because they have things that we don't, that are better than what we have, like coalition governments. They were able to actually save their own government from something. It's kind of like Brexit. Brexit happened because they only got one shot at voting on it. If that had been a multi-vote initiative, it wouldn't have happened, because they voted it in. Everybody who was voting for it was like, oh, I didn't think there was really a chance, though, was there? But then they happened, and now we're fucked. I know I went a little New Zealandish there at the end, but the regret was immediate, and you knew. People were making jokes like, but don't worry, it's not too late. Just kidding. Yes, it is. You had the one day to vote, and now you all regret your vote. So there is, to me, it's the French thing. It's like, that's an example of when the outcome doesn't necessarily reflect the polling. As I think Matt was pointing out, the outcome didn't reflect the polling, but it doesn't mean you should dismiss the polling. And polling, I had this argument with a very prominent atheist. I'm not going to say who it was, but it was like 6 months ago or so on Threads, and the guy was a total dick to me and was calling my point of view nonsense, and I'm waiting for his apology basket, because many of the things I predicted when I said that shit has come to fruition, but I doubt I'll be getting the apology basket. Anyway, we've got tons of callers waiting, so if Matt, unless you've got more to jump on top of that with, I actually thought, yeah, bringing up the French election was actually perfect, because you can capture both sides with it. The people who say that the polls mean nothing and that actually the polls do matter. You can defend either side, and in a way, they're both right. You should not look at a poll as what the outcome will be, but you also shouldn't look at polls that didn't nail the outcome as dismissible.
Yeah, the weird thing for me, and I'm ready to go into calls, if for no other reason than it'll shut up dat hum. It's so fucking irritating. We've been live for a few minutes talking about our assessment of what happened. We've got 8 callers that we're getting ready to start with, and somebody's like, oh, so no calls today? This is important. Yeah, whatever. What's important is that Jimmy and I decided to do a 'cause I wanna in order to vent and take calls. We've done the venting part. Now we're going to take calls. Buckle up, bitch.
Go watch every previous 'cause I wanna, and I understand not everybody can keep track. Have we ever started calls this early in a 'cause I wanna? I think this will be the earliest we've ever started calls.
Outside of the Sunday show, I think the general format for most of the shows on this network is about 30 minutes of back and forth without calls, then about an hour to 6 hours of calls. and then some, I gotta include it for Forrest, because Forrest will be on here taking 6 hours of calls every fucking day if he could.
I was thinking, I've just made the spectrum of Alyssa, because they do a 90-minute show, to Forrest, a 6-hour show. That's the if you needed to put people on as a spectrum here, the Alyssa to Forrest spectrum. 2 of my very favorite people representing the polls.
You are driving.
I am. Let's see. I want mostly people who disagree he should drop, but I don't know what you prefer. But we'll start with James. Doesn't matter either way.
I want you to get the calls that you want to do, because I haven't got to do a show with you in a while, and I would like for you to enjoy it. And plus, the world is such a fucking shit show right now that if I don't get to have fun doing a show with Jimmy, I don't think I'm going to keep going.
I feel that. James, you're on the line for a perfect call. Welcome, James. Let's do the perfect call right now.
Well, I hope it's the perfect call. Hello, Jimmy. Hello, Matt. I agreed with your last sentiment. I don't know what else, like the world is, who knows what's going to happen. It's a mess. But I did want to make 3 points. I know you disagree with me, and that's fine. And at the end of this call, if you disagree with me, that's totally fine. But I think my points need to be taken seriously, even if you end up disagreeing with them. My points.
Cool. Lay them out. Succinctly,
please. About the criticism and the critics of Biden. If you watch that press conference, it's about an hour long or so. I bet you, I bet you a huge amount of money that most of the people who are criticizing Biden to drop out couldn't do a whole hour lecture on foreign policy in the advanced way that he did it. Right? So I think that's important to note. And in fact, I would say all of those critics should be completely ignored on that basis alone. However, he's also an 82-year-old man who's getting up in age. I don't think anyone or very few people could do a lecture that advanced at 82.
Is this still point one?
He's not qualified.
Hang on, James. Is this still point one?
This is point one, right? My point one is the critics.
Okay, James, I don't want to jump to point two until we stop at point one, because while I agree with overall what you are saying, this is a bizarre, I'm going to be a little bit mean. This is a stupid point. A critic does not have to be capable of doing the job to say, I don't trust this person to do the job. I don't have to be able to be a plumber to not want to hire a plumber, because whether or not he's otherwise can do plumbing things I can't do.
That's so wild.
That I don't think he's a good enough plumber. So James, to point one, terrible point.
Well, I don't think it's. Wait. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hang on, James. First of all, wild that you talk about hiring a plumber, since I literally had plumbers here and wasted $515 on something I could have fixed for $20 today. So expensive lesson learned. To be kind of a mild devil's advocate with James, after the debate, I made the point that Biden stood up there during the debate with no notes and no assistant and spoke more competently than his opponent. That is a relevant point. That between the two of them during the debate, with no notes and no prep and no assistance, Trump was worse on the facts and the data and the issues and being able to competently address issues than Biden was. However, the perception was not that at all, because Biden's pauses and staring off into space and fumbling certain answers, including beating Medicare, and Trump being a little more glib and a little straightforward, it gave the impression that he did better. This is why I keep pointing out that debate is theater. Now, in a press conference where you have, who you're calling on for questions, you presumably know what the questions are going to be. You've prepared for some of this. And the issue that people are raising is there are people who are genuinely concerned because you keep messing up names. And in response to that question, you refer to your own vice president by the name of your opponent. That's not going to instill confidence in people. And Jimmy's completely right that when a reporter or anybody else says, hey, you're screwing up, I get what you're saying. I think it's impressive as fuck that Biden can come out and spew information off the top of his head, have a grasp of stuff, switch from one topic to the other relatively smoothly, being able to speak cogently about it. But all of that is secondary to whether or not he's the best candidate to run against Trump.
Yeah. I think we all agree. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
James, I want to add one more, because I'm, Matt was devil's advocating, and I mostly agree with him, but I disagree on some level. I think there was more that was disappointing about the debate and how I think he does fine, actually better in a thing like this, where a reporter is asking a question and all you have to do is hear a word. And then he was, for example, he was at Camp David for the days leading up to it. So he was prepared for the debate. And when he heard certain words, he often stayed on topic. But when you're talking about debate, staying on topic isn't the only thing. Reacting to what the other person is saying is the only thing. And so To me, it was actually the over preparation that I hated more when he was saying those things, because it didn't feel like it dynamically adapted to the actual conversation he was having with Trump. Obviously, there's where the lack of fact checking came in. And that's where I would say the difference between a debate and a news conference should come in. And on that, to that degree, yeah, if we just go who had more of the facts, Biden was obviously way more factual than Trump. But I wasn't impressed otherwise with his debate performance.
Yeah. I mean, I think we both.
And
I
sorry,
think we all.
sorry, James.
I'm sorry. I don't mean.
Really quickly, there was not a debate. So I don't think it's fair to criticize Biden for not coming back at Trump on certain issues when the format of the debate was to mute microphones when the other person was speaking and to force them into questions with no fact checking. The debate format prevented him from challenging some stuff. I think the problem is that when he decided to challenge stuff, he challenged stupid fucking stuff like golf score.
Right. And there's obviously the bad moment that's going to continue to be replayed of he's asked a question about abortion, starts a story about abortion, brings up a funeral of some woman, mentions that Trump wanted to go to it or something, and then ends on an immigration. He immigrationed an abortion point is what Jon Stewart referenced it as. That was shit. Anyway, sorry, James. This is going to happen because Matt and I do slightly vary on these things. So sometimes y'all will be prompting our little mini debates. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I just want to get all my points out, then I'll shut up. But I think we agree on two things, and I think there's an important thing to note about that debate as well. I think we agree that people are stupid, and so there's going to be a lot of critics who are going to say this regardless. That's just an unfortunate fact. And then the second thing I think we all agree on is the fact that Biden is not a perfect candidate. I mean, I'm going to be first to say that. I don't deny that.
What difference does that make?
But I think one thing has to be noted about the CNN debate, I'll shut up in a minute.
No, you'll shut up now.
James, you'll shut up when the question comes.
Okay.
What difference does it make if somebody's not the perfect candidate? Has there ever been a perfect candidate? Has it ever mattered whether or not there's a perfect candidate? Shouldn't you just pick the better candidate?
Well, I agree. But my position is that Biden is the best candidate. I'm getting to that, but that's my second point. We can get there.
Okay, so far you've given a bad point, and then your second point was a point we agreed on, but have still come to a different conclusion than you. So is the third point going to be the one where we actually show the difference between us?
Yeah, my second point, we'll get there. I just want to make a little note on the CNN debate. The CNN CEO is on record as saying that the Trump presidency will be a slight disruption. So he's not worried at all about Trump. And so it's not a surprise that the CNN moderators didn't try to fact check Trump the entire debate. Anyway,
I'm sorry, you don't get to hide behind anything with how the debate went either, though, with Biden. The fact of the matter is the DNC picked the rules for those debates in a way that was supposed to benefit Biden, and Trump came in and made it look like, actually, this is my best way to debate. He actually looked better because of it, not worse.
Yeah, what CNN?
Yeah, Biden is the one who set the terms and he screwed it up. I agree.
Is irrelevant, so why raise it?
Why? What? Who said was irrelevant? I'm sorry.
You made a point of saying that somebody in charge at CNN thinks X. What fucking difference does it make what the person in charge at CNN thinks if the people running the campaigns are the ones that made this decision about how the debate was going to go?
I agree. It was a mistake on their point. I 100% agree. I was just saying there's a reason why they didn't.
That's not what I asked, James. Why bring up what the CNN leader thinks if it's not fucking relevant?
Well, I think it's somewhat relevant to how they failed to.
How? If the individual campaigns agreed on the format, what difference does it make what format the leader at CNN would have preferred or what he thought about Trump's presidency? None of that is relevant to the format.
Because they failed to fact check Trump, is all I'm saying.
Okay, show us proof.
Christ, James.
Show us proof that was communicated to Jake and Dana from the president.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm in agreement. I'm not sure why
you're not in agreement. Stop saying you're fucking in agreement while I'm calling you out on something we disagree about. How is it relevant? How is it relevant what the leader at CNN felt about Trump's candidacy if the two campaigns agreed on the fucking format?
prima facie, there's nothing relevant about it, I suppose.
Cool. Then why the fuck did you bring it up? That's what I asked 2-3 minutes ago.
Well, then I made a mistake. I apologize.
Cool. Next point.
Go.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the second point. The second point is about the polls. I think so. I disagree with Biden somewhat. Recall what he said. I can't recall it. You mentioned it. I'm sorry. I'm blanking on it. But he said how the polls are not reliable or something. Generally, I tend to agree with that. But there are many polls that are very important that are not part of this discussion that I think need to be part of it. The first was a Fox News poll that was recent. You might have heard of it, of how the majority of Americans polled think democracy, stability, and abortion are major issues that they're going to vote on in November. So that would seem to imply, if the votes go to Biden at the end, that Biden is winning the election. There's also a poll that shows that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, 53% compared to 37%. Again, if those votes go to Biden, that means he's winning the election. There's a poll that shows Biden winning both Michigan and Wisconsin. It means he only needs one more state to win, and that was only 2 days ago. Again, that shows that
What
Biden's
percentage
winning
of
the
Americans believe that Joe Biden should drop?
Well, I don't know that poll.
80% of Americans, 56% of Democrats.
Okay, I'll talk about why. I'm sorry. I'll talk about why I don't think that in a minute. But let me just get through this, and we can.
Okay, no. You won't, James. We're going to talk about it right now. You don't get to pick and choose and say this Fox News poll, we should take that as how the vote will go, but these other ones we shouldn't. Matt and I are aware that sometimes a president wins because the down ballot, the voter initiatives bring out people from a certain side. But the fact of the matter is, we cannot rely on that. And to say that you think, so like, for example, the thing you say with abortion and whatever the other two that you listed were, immigration is also on a lot of people's mind. And right now the perception is that immigration is bad. The economy is on a lot of people's minds. And even though it isn't fair, the way they're measuring his economy versus other economies of the past, people's perception of it is, things are more expensive. Somehow 3% inflation has doubled my grocery bill. I don't understand how that 3% becomes 100%. They see shit like that, and that kind of stuff sucks for them. And so you don't get to just come in here and go, they say these things are very important. I agree that in Florida might now be a swing state because abortion is directly on the ballot, not because Biden and Trump are on the ballot and they both have differing views on abortion. It takes the vote, it takes the actual ballot initiative to rely on, not even rely, just feel more confident in the thing that you are presenting. And the fact of the matter is most states do not have those ballot initiatives.
Does Matt have any comment? I don't want to speak before.
Nope.
He'll talk if he does. Go ahead.
I'm not watching. I'm just talking fun. So I think what you're saying is, can we prove that the voters will do this rather than you have no way of knowing which issues they'll vote on in November? Is that what I'm getting?
I'm saying you're a cherry picker and there's a cumulative case that takes all of them into mind.
You're right. But the thing is that you're not wrong because the polls are complicated. But I think that the important thing is not looking at the polls and cherry picking the polls. The important thing is looking at the trends and the underlying elements of it. And this
great. What are the demographic change? What major demographic changes have happened in the polling in the last 4 years? Just name one.
Perfect. Right.
Major.
I'm getting that. So I'm getting it. So
no. Name it now.
I'm getting it. In the last few months, there's been a 4-point shift toward Biden. 4 points.
I asked for a demographic shift major poll because this is the one that I have been worried about since before any of this happened.
What do you mean by demographic in this context?
What's a demographic? I'll just answer it for you, James.
You're talking about
right now, Democrats won because they had people of color and queers.
Right.
And guess who is not nearly as enthused this time around? The people who won them the election last time.
Well, the recent polls, like the ones past couple of days has shown a huge support among Black and Latino voters, and that's why I was gonna.
Yes, Democrats always have a bigger support amount. We're talking about a shift that they are overall losing both, not just which one they will vote for, but actual enthusiasm to vote.
So you're asking me how enthused they are? Is that what you're asking me?
I
was asking you about demographic shifting you're ignoring.
I'm just not clear what the question is.
I asked you for a demographic shift. You couldn't give one, so I gave you one. You can now continue with your point.
I'll give you plenty. There's currently plenty of polling that shows Biden's very good with Latinos, very good with Black people, and that we would lose that if Biden is taken out.
No, compared to 2016, you are wrong. Compared to 2020, what Biden had to now, not compared to Trump, Biden's previous support. Because remember, he does not win by the popular vote. He wins by the Electoral College. He is doing worse than 2020.
Yeah, that's another point I would make is what's more likely? Is Biden going to get 50% of the vote?
James, I'm exhausted. You're the first caller, and I'm exhausted because every time one of us disagrees with you, you do this. Yes, that's what I'm saying, as if we were in fucking agreement. It is exhausting.
Well, that's my mistake for not understanding what question you're asking, maybe. I don't know what question you're trying to get at.
Here, let me make this really easy, James. Of the people who are not currently going to vote blue, what's the best way to change their mind, and how do you know?
Oh, I would just say we look at the issues, and the issues currently are the ones that Biden's running on, right? Like Project 2025, democracy,
do you think
stability.
These people didn't look at the issues and didn't know about the issues the last time? I'm asking you about people who aren't going to vote. 2020, James, the last time we did this.
Yeah, I'm missing why is that relevant?
If there are people who voted for Biden, shut up. If there are people who voted for Biden in 2020 and they're not currently planning to vote for him, what needs to happen to change their mind? And your answer was they need to look at the issues. Well, that's fucking worked brilliant so far.
I just don't buy this assumption that they're not going to vote. Maybe that's the problem.
James, and I don't buy your silly assumption that because Biden is the better president and better on policy, he won't lose. Because that's the sum of your argument. No. And that's why Hillary lost in 2016. Because you can't conceive of one winning over the other. No, it's the sum of your argument.
My argument is that the trends are going towards Biden.
Meanwhile, he's been losing the black vote. Meanwhile, I mean, the Daily Show just did a special. What?
Not in recent polls. He's been getting it back.
Did you not see the Daily Show the day before yesterday where they put up 6 African Americans, all of which had previously voted for Biden, and 3 of them are dead set on Trump, and spitting facts and talking about the issues did not get a single one of them to change their mind at all. Now, I realize that's a very small sample size, but the Daily Show shut up. The Daily Show put this together because of polling that suggested Biden has dropped his popularity in the black community. And so they had them on to talk about how they keep voting Democrat and Democrats keep making promises and they don't come through. And I've talked to a handful of people and listened to some of them say, hey, you know what? Trump was president last time and the world didn't fall apart. And I'm like, what do you mean the world didn't fall apart? There was an attempted insurrection and coup. We lost the Supreme Court. We lost Roe. How do you pretend like it didn't happen? For some reason, people do not care or are not willing to stick with Biden or the Dems. And so my question was, how do you convince those people who previously voted for Biden, who are literally telling you they're not going to do it now? What do you do to change their mind? Because that's all I give a fuck about.
Well, I'm just not interested in anecdotes. I care about the data.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that, James. I'm about to fuck you up. I'm about to fuck you up, James, because you just did what fucking... I am so glad that you're apparently on the theist side, because I hate when atheists do what you just fucking did. There are times you should never give anecdotal evidence. There are times where you should go, based on the anecdote, no, of course not, I don't believe in God. However, James, do you know when the time you should bring up anecdotal evidence is? When you precede it with data and polling, and then you go, by the way, here is an example of the expression of that polling. So for example, if you go and say, hey guys, cancer is on the rise this much, and it turns out they have this thing in common. And by the way, this organization did a news thing recently and had 6 people with cancer, and they talked about that, and it turns out they did have that in common. That's actually when you bring up anecdotal evidence, because it actually is an illustration of the data you just brought up. And when Matt brought up that anecdote, he didn't say, therefore the polling is 100% correct. He said, we found black voters that resemble that data, and specifically when engaged with them, they did not change their mind even though they were given straight up facts. So how do we win those people over? So James, before you try to cosplay a competent online debater, learn how to actually fucking use the terms you're going to throw out and try to accuse other people of doing. Boom.
I'm going to go get a
Well,
drink.
that was a weak response.
Shut up, James.
Oh, that was a weak
I don't know
response.
why. I don't know why you weren't hung up on. I don't know if it's all pantheists or just James that's too stupid to be able to stay on point and have a discussion. But I don't care for James's anecdotes, so I'm going to get a drink real quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go for it. You're on such thin ice. That was a weak argument. Oh man, you nailed me to the. You just got fucking schooled, brother. You just got fucking schooled.
I gave you at least 4 polls. You gave me an anecdote.
That isn't what I literally just explained to you, the justification for the anecdote, and that Matt wasn't actually relying on the anecdote to illustrate the fucking data, but that it is,
no data.
You totally, shut the fuck up. It is totally valid to illustrate when you start with the data, you start
Show
with the
it.
polling, you go, and boom, here is an expression of that. And then when he asked back, how do we change the mindset?
Right?
All right, goodbye. Good job on trying to talk over me, you fucking idiot. You just got schooled, you're embarrassed, and now you're floundering, which is why you're trying to talk over me. Goodbye, bitch. Fucking idiot. Holy shit. If you're gonna try and come to a show like this and start throwing out terms like you know what the fuck you're doing, practice more than in Facebook debates, because you look like a fucking idiot. If you bring up data first, anecdotes which illustrate the data are valid when considering the thought process of how do we change their mind. And by the way, what would the answer be back to that? If you are going to give an answer back to that, you're literally going to go, well, this kind of thing has worked for some people. This kind of thing has worked for some people. This kind of thing has worked for some people. Literally, the response is going to have elements of anecdotes, but those anecdotes might be backed up by data. If I come to you and I say, hey, I experienced a fairy, of course, I should not say, therefore you should believe in fairies. But if I come to you and go, hey, here's all the data I actually have proving fairies exist, and here's my consistent with the data experience of that fairy, and by the way, I also brought video evidence of the fairy, that's fine, you dipshit. Anyway, I hung up on him after schooling him, and then he tried to talk over me a bunch. So I'll let you pick the next one.
I should have pointed out, instead of just being like, or all pantheists too stupid. The reality is that pantheism is an incredibly stupid proposition, where you're pretty much claiming to have detected the undetectable. So it's not surprising that somebody who every time we voiced a disagreement kept thinking, oh, no, we agree. That's what I'm getting ready to say. Only it's this, because that's the mentality that has to exist for you to come to the conclusion that pantheism is reasonable. James, call in sometime.
I'm enjoying this.
When we're doing a religious thing,
sorry, go ahead.
And defend your pantheism.
There's as the mods know, I don't give a fuck if people want to. Obviously, there's a line, but I'm liking this in chat. Jimmy's extra douchey tonight. All Jimmy does is call everyone an idiot. Well, I got to tell you,
me too.
If you watch that call and the only thing you heard me say was the final words I said, I'm not worried that of the two of us, I'm the douche, and I think there might be among us an idiot.
It might be. I'm just going to do them in order, since we don't have theists on here and we're not necessarily focused on theist stuff. Taylor in Connecticut, you're on pronouns or he, him.
How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Just fine. Hey, how you doing?
Good. I don't fully belong in this conversation, but I thought I'd inject a thought and see how you guys react to it. My frustration with theists is at an all-time high, and I remember certain words spoken by Christopher Hitchens, religion poisons everything, and I feel like there might be something to be said about theists' hate for proof. Like when we argue with them about theism and we say that needs proof, they just automatically hate that. They hate that. So when we say Trump lied and here's the proof, they just hate it. So all those arguments just fall on deaf ears. Okay, great. Sorry.
I'm wondering what's going on with phone calls, that there's this kind of peaking, clicking in phone calls.
Yeah, call-in studio is extra sensitive. It's been for a little bit for a while. If you can just back off your mic a little bit.
I don't know if that's any better.
Way better.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't really have anything else to say.
Oh, I'm just saying that the reason I don't think I completely agree with that is that I don't think that theists hate proof or hate evidence. I think they think they already have it, and they question the evidence or attempts at proving stuff that contradicts what they already are convinced is true. And so, like, if you were completely convinced that your partner was not cheating on you, and multiple people kept coming in with evidence, and you were able to find fault with their evidence, even if your thinking is biased and based on something else, it's not that you're opposed to evidence or proof. It's that you already think you have it and you're finding potential flaws with there. I'm incredibly frustrated, not just with theists, with everybody who seems to be ignoring the facts. Like, one statistic that blows my mind, I've mentioned it 20 times probably in the last 3 weeks, is 49% of people thought that unemployment was at a 30-year high when unemployment was at a 30-year low. That's not just a matter, or a near 30-year low. That's not just a matter of being, wrong. That's half the population has the exact inverse understanding of reality than what we know from the data.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that they don't care about proof or facts.
The link, it feels like there is a link between how quickly they will accept whatever argument is in what they already think. They value that.
That's not
more
exclusive
than
to theists.
No.
Absolutely.
You're talking about confirmation bias, and some people are worse at it, and some people are programmed from a younger age to embrace it more. But yeah, it's not just these.
From your perspective, though, Taylor, whether it's they hate proof, they hate evidence, they're doubting authority or whatever else, do you see any way that we fix that? Because no matter what the root cause is, and maybe we have to find the root cause to be able to fix it, you and I are in agreement that there's a specific group of people, not just theists, but a specific contingent of the population, that does not accept the facts of reality because they've accepted some counterfacts. And I'm wondering, you may say, I don't have a first fucking clue, which I don't myself, but I was wondering if you had thoughts on what we could do to potentially fix that.
I appreciate you giving me the out, and I'm going to take it. I really have no idea. And my comment was more a fear that I had, not a reflection of what reality is. That's just what I'm afraid of. And my hackles are up when it comes to theists. So I can't really say.
If anything, I think theists enjoy the idea of proof. It was just poorly phrased, Taylor, but I don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying. But they love the concept of proof because they cosplay it all the time. Who speaks more about proof and tries to say the words "look at the science" than someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene when she's hating on trans people? But then when you want to look at the science on like how old is the Earth, and she thinks it started a week ago Friday. That's what Forrest would call hyperbole.
My last thought, if you'd let me, I watched the video of AOC doing the impeachment thing, and it was I think it was like something like 13 minutes, and it was so refreshing for me. I know it's not going to go whatever we think is going to happen. It doesn't matter, but it was just so nice to hear some rationality coming out of somebody. So if you do me a favor, one of the things, how theists have what would Jesus do? I'm always thinking about what would Christopher Hitchens say. So I wonder if Matt could speak to that at all, if that's not too annoying of a question for you.
Oh wow. Yeah, I I don't have the first clue what Hitchens would say. He and
Yeah,
I
that's
never
got to
had
be
a
the hardest
conversation.
question. I wish I could hear
He and I
his
never
voice
had a
in this
conversation.
moment, though.
He and I never had a conversation, and um, we had a number of areas of disagreement. And so I don't know that I knew Hitch well enough to really say, "Oh, here's
Oh,
what
fair
he'd
enough.
say."
Also, you're
Anyways,
probably
thank you for the
engaging.
great
You probably
conversation.
engage in this. I was just gonna say as a note, when you think of things like that, it's funny because while not as bad as them, we all will probably engage in bias, even if we tried to do that. Like in my head, I'd be like, "Oh, he totally wouldn't be a transphobe like all of his atheist best friends seem to be. He totally wouldn't have supported X or Y or
Right.
Z." But then he was also dumb on some stuff. He was dumb on abortion. He was dumb on foreign policy, and so, well, I shouldn't say all foreign policy, but Middle Eastern intervention. His thoughts for that. I mean, even that would be creating a fantasy and kind of doing the thing that you're worried that theists do.
Yeah, fair.
Mod, you don't have to
The
delete
fear
somebody
was a
trying to be
motivation.
shitty to me.
The fear was a motivation to go to a local selectman meeting. So I would suggest people do that. There is no form of government more powerful than your local government, is what I've heard. So
Yeah.
it's relieving some fear for me. But I'll let you guys go. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Cool.
Hello.
I'm here. Sorry, I'm
Oh, sorry.
fighting with a moron in chat.
I got distracted. You got distracted all at the same time. You ready for the next one?
Yep, let's do it.
Vincent in Virginia, pronouns are him. You're on with Jimmy and Matt. How you doing?
Hi, Matt. Hi, Jimmy. How you guys doing?
I'm all right.
I wanted to go over a few things. I wrote down some notes here, so I didn't lose my train of thought. First of all, I really wrote this down when the last guy said it. Something about engaging in local politics with the political world in America becoming so much more like national. Do you guys still think that holds true?
One more time.
Local politics are very important. Yes.
I think they're important. The problem is that it's still a top-down system, and so we could put as. So here's the thing: Project 2025 is making a list of basically Trump loyalists and loyalists to an ideology that includes Trump in that, and they can replace on day one. Trump can replace 50,000 government workers at all levels of government, including down to local stuff, with loyalists. And if they control the federal government, you being on a school board is not going to be particularly relevant if the school board doesn't have any power to override what's coming down from the federal government. On the other hand, when federal government is stagnant or in conflict or stalling because it can't make progress, then the people at the local elections and stuff, they might be the most important at that point because they're the ones that can still get shit done when everything else is grinding to a halt.
Okay. And then, and by the way, I heard everything you said, and honestly, that's the reason why I sometimes get disheartened by it, because you can vote for as many local people as you want, and at the same time, the federal seems to override it or precede it or whatever. But this is to go along with that. I remember you had mentioned earlier in the conversation talking about we need to get Democrats in the House, in the Senate, and in the presidency. And I agree with you. My only concern is then what stops the Supreme Court from striking down anything that they pass by saying it's constitutionally illegal?
You can impeach the Supreme Court. Once we control the House and the Senate and the president and the executive branch, you can then begin impeaching Supreme Court justices. You can also expand the court.
The expanding part, I 100% agree. The only thing with impeaching isn't it to convict, you have to have a 2/3 vote in the Senate?
Yeah.
And do you think that either party will ever have that large of a majority in today's American political system?
I don't
No,
know.
we
I
should
think
pack
it
the
should be
court.
unanimous right now for blue, but I'm the one that's stuck in a reality that cares about facts and integrity. So I'm not the right person to ask. But when I talk about a clean sweep, yes, we need to control the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. It would be nice if we could build up to a 2/3 to be able to do it. But even without a 2/3 majority, if we can help change the right wing to get rid of the Tea Party MAGA idiots, the people who are QAnon and so divorced from reality that they are absolutely destroying anything that could even be confused for integrity in the Republican Party. If we can help pit those against each other, it would be the nicest thing we could do if Democrats could help the Republican Party fix what the fuck is wrong with it.
You know, I was watching one of my shows that I like. He says he's an independent show. It's called The Secular Talk, and he brought this point up, and I thought it was a fantastic point with the shuffling of Supreme Court justices to go back into the federal benches every so odd years to keep them from getting uncontrollable power, like every 2 or 4 years, whatever the term is, you name it. You have to go back down to the federal bench to avoid, politicization. Because unfortunately, with them being an unelected body, I feel like that's the only way to check them as the people.
Yeah,
Term limits would be great, but
I'm in favor.
Packing the court's probably our only recourse.
No, not term limits, but like shuffling them. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey,
yeah, I hear you, and I'm responding that term limits would be great.
Okay. And then, Jimmy, with your point earlier about you think that Biden should be replaced. I don't know how I feel about that. My only thing is I would love that, and I feel like that's a solid point. My only concern is then let me just rephrase the point. Even as bad as Biden is, we would say mentally, I feel like the policies that he's passed, aside from the genocide in Gaza, I feel like, and which is a terrible occurrence, but I feel like Trump would be worse. But even with all that, I feel like his agenda has been pretty progressive. And so what I'm saying is, as bad as he is, would you not rather negotiate and work, policy-wise engage with somebody who I feel like has been, in comparison to other American politicians recently, pretty progressive?
If the choice is between Biden and Trump, as we've said a million times, of course I will vote for Biden. Biden, the point that you're making up about Gaza is a singular point that has actually lost him a ton of young voters and progressive voters and people who are basically saying, you don't just get my vote automatically and continue to do this. Today, they actually announced that they are going to deliver the big bombs that had otherwise been delayed. And you've got a lot of people who are going, look, to me, there is a line where if you sent me back to the 30s and I could vote for, well, never mind. I'm not going to make a Hitler metaphor. It's too easy. But I have a line. It's genocide, and I feel like we're engaging in genocide, and that there are candidates right now who, even if they end up effectively having the same policy, will get to speak to that I will do it differently. I hope they do it differently, and will be able to win back many of those progressives and win back the young people who would have voted and potentially win new young voters. But right now we know that the young vote, which was important in 2020, is super unenthused.
Just engage me in this point, Jimmy, real quick. What would you say to an argument of somebody saying, well, then, if Trump ends up winning, do you think he'll be better? Like if you change the person, and or if you replace Biden, or let's say Biden goes.
Vincent, they already considered this before the age problem, and they are unenthused. The age problem was not what we're talking about as far as like today's issue that he is showing signs of this old age and stuff. They already had lost their enthusiasm while saying yes. And in fact, what you have from a lot of actual leftists and deeply progressive people is this idea of if you look at the two parties, sure, there are these things in which they are, but that they are majorly, for the most part, the same party. And I disagree with them on that. But they generally go, there's not that big of a difference. And the Band-Aids that liberals want to put on this do not actually heal the body. And so we're not ready. We're not going to vote for someone who's advocating for Band-Aids. We're going to advocate for people who are advocating for cures.
And Jimmy, can you take me to the next point and how you would build on that? How would that go about in this current election?
I don't even know what that question is. I'm talking about the reality.
No, because you said no. Okay, no, because you had said that you don't want a Band-Aid. You want somebody who's going to completely fix it. But with the current,
I said
right now,
I am describing their mindset. I already said I'm voting for Biden. I agree with the sentiment that for the most part, the Democratic Party puts Band-Aids on and they feel good about the Band-Aids and not generally are working toward the full healing. However, if Band-Aids are the best we can do, I am going to vote for Band-Aids over open wounds.
Okay, that's fair enough. Matt, I just have this one more point, brother. You said earlier in the conversation about, the delegates possibly, changing their alliance and allegiance to Biden. My only concern is, and I saw this earlier, is if you set a precedent where the delegates aren't married to the politician and aren't committed to the politician, let's say a Bernie Sanders in a contested convention, if the results turned out differently in 2020, would you say that would be a bad precedent to set of delegates not holding their commitment to the candidate that the people chose? And I'm not saying that it was a legitimate primary. I don't think it was a legitimate primary.
Yes. You can't ask me a question and then talk over my answer. Yes, it would be a bad precedent to set. They have to at least vote for the problem is that we didn't have primaries, and so we're gonna have to throw that out in order to have an open convention. It would potentially be a terrible precedent, but the convention is the time to actually make that case. And that is one of the stronger cases that Biden can potentially make. And then people can make a counter case, which is, well, we just went with you as the presumptive nominee. And so we didn't have primaries. So the delegates didn't really get the opportunity to come in and do any representation and stuff. This is not remotely a simple thing. The question that I wanted to ask is if you're out there and you're a left-leaning, generally Democrat-minded voter, and you're saying, I won't vote for Biden because of Gaza, I would love for you to explain to me how Trump would be better.
Thank you.
That's not.
Thank you. I've been saying that nonstop.
I already responded to that, though. Hang on. Vincent, I already responded to that. It's not a matter of they think that Trump is better. It's a matter of that they think their vote is taken for granted and that the difference between the two isn't so.
Stop.
Vincent, don't interrupt me. It really drives me crazy when people agree with me. I am not advocating for my position. I'm not even saying that this is my position. I'm not even saying their position is correct. I'm saying they don't see when you go far enough left or progressive, or you are just intellectually lazy. These are the people who don't actually agree with the concept of voting for the lesser of two evils. I don't agree with them on that. However, they feel they have some moral thing to go. Yeah, and
you don't agree with them. I want one of them that agrees with them to call in so that I can have that conversation. Because if you're going to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to vote for Biden. Okay, the reality is only one of two people or platforms has any hope of winning. I swear, just mute it. Only one of two has any hope of winning. Either we're going to have a Democratic-led administration with the Democratic Party and policies and whoever's leading it, probably Biden, or we're going to have a right-wing Republican-led platform led by Trump. If Gaza is your concern, and things would be worse in Gaza under Trump, then by not voting for the better option, no matter how many times you try to frame it as, oh, I'm not going to vote for the lesser evil. Okay, then you are voting for the greater evil. If you're either going to get cancer or athlete's foot, and we give you the opportunity of which one you want, and you say, oh no, I won't make that choice. I'm going to stand by my moral indignation, and you can't make me choose to have even athlete's foot. It would be grossly immoral for you to force me to choose to have athlete's foot. Congratulations, you get cancer. The reality is, not voting is saying that you're okay with the worst possible option. And it doesn't matter whether you think Biden's the worst option or Trump's the worst option. You're saying it's okay with you if either of them are elected. You're saying you cannot see that one of these individuals leads to a better world, even if it is imperfect, broken, and you vehemently disagree with one aspect of it. That's what those people are saying.
Well, so again, I can play their advocate if you want. I'll say it shortly because, again, I don't agree with them, but their simple response to you was you think that there's a difference of athlete's foot to cancer, and they would say the difference is brain cancer versus stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Okay.
Yeah,
which
one of them's
worse?
still worse. Right. And basically that they're not going to reward a system that chooses to give cancer out, and that they're going to keep working toward the cure while having while still having to have the cancer.
Yeah. Sorry, if you decide that you're not going to support the system while the house is on fire, the house is going to burn down and there's no system for you to support. I just mixed metaphors. I could have gone with house on fire.
You just made leftists hard. They want to, a lot of leftists want to burn down the current system. That's not
fine.
But
I would be fine with a proper revolution that made some changes. Cool. But there are ways to do that don't involve saying, no, I'm way too good to vote for either of these individuals. That is a bucket of privilege that I want to rip out, dump over your head while I throat punch you figuratively. Because do you not have anyone in your life with a womb? Do you not have anybody in your life that is LGBTQ? Do you not have anybody in your life who's poor, who's an immigrant? Do you not have anybody in your life that you give a fuck about other than, oh, let me just take a very, very principled stance on Gaza so that I can claim I was right all along when others weren't? Fuck you.
Yeah, they're Twitter activists. And this is kind of my point when why I don't agree with them. Most of them are not most. I shouldn't say that. A lot of them are acting like they are ready to pick up the gun and go start the revolution, but they're just waiting on however many people we need to actually do it. So I'll just sit here waiting for the rest of you to catch up with how great I am, and that shit doesn't work. They actually. So if you go to some of their Reddits, you'll actually see them do that stupid every other capitalized character thing in response to any argument of one is worse than the other, because they can't actually defeat that argument. So they just will then go, one is worse than the other, as though that's the counter argument. Many of my fellow leftists debate like theists, like creationists, frankly.
Can I make one more point?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I was born in a Muslim country, and then I came to America, and I converted to Christianity, and then I deconverted to atheism. And I think the biggest thing that I've noticed in my journey is that people are married to their ideology, and their identity is their belief system, whether it's religion or politics. And the caller asked earlier, how do you change people's mind? It's how do you change people's identity? And I think that's the root of it. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thanks,
Vincent. You could also say that they're a bit of the trolley problem. A lot of this vote, if you wanted to make a at least a philosophically understandable thing of you could say that some of them are, I am the kind of person who would let the 5 die because taking the action which results in a death is an action I can't take. But letting the world go as it goes is. And I know that obviously I feel there's no such thing as not taking an action. Not voting is pulling a different lever or is still an act in and of itself.
Yeah, this is one of those things. I understand. I understand why some people believe in God. I understand why some people buy into conspiracies. And I understand why someone might think, ooh, if me taking an action would result in somebody's death, then I would rather take no action, even if it results in more death. And I understand the intuitive sense that there's a distinction between taking an action that results in this and not taking an action. But let me remind you of what the great poet Neil Peart wrote when he was putting together a song for Rush, which is, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Unfortunately, all of us are participants in a system, and all of us have a duty to work towards the better world. And if you say, I'm not going to work towards a better world because I don't like the way this is being done, well, all these people who are like, hey, if the Democrats wanted my vote, they should have not railroaded Bernie out. Well, first of all, Bernie's not a fucking Democrat. He just plays one when it's convenient. I adore Bernie. I would vote for Bernie, but he's not a Democrat. So the DNC has no reason to kowtow to Bernie. But you can say that for anybody. Oh, if the Democrats wanted my vote, they should have let my candidate win. Well, boo fucking who? My candidates didn't win either. At the end of the day, my preferred candidates are not in this race. But you know what? I'm still going to vote blue. And it's not about me rewarding the Democrats. Get that mentality out of your fucking head. Voting is a civil duty, and you are not rewarding Democrats with your vote. It is a participatory system. You are saying next year in 2025, there's either going to be a bunch of people who are working to implement Project 2025, or there are going to be a bunch of people trying to make sure that Project 2025 can never get implemented. Which world would I want? Oh, wait a minute. If I vote for the ones that are trying to shut down Project 2025, maybe stuff will continue to be bad in Gaza. Maybe there'll be record inflation again. Maybe there'll be this. Yeah, but the world won't fucking end, and democracy may be able to be rescued. It's about triage. If the house is on fire and you come in saying, yeah, but rent's too high, groceries are too high. Well, first of all, groceries are high in part because of record inflation in 2022 and struggling to come back after the pandemic, where grocery prices rose 13% in 2022. But this year, they've only risen 1.2%, and income increases for the middle and lower class, earning potential, has outstripped that. We are starting to outstrip inflation. Now, does that mean the economy is good and great for everybody? No. But so people were like, hey, if you can't figure out how to feed your family on $40 a week, you can just still take heart in the fact that the stock market's at an all-time high. Some dipshit comedian made that comment the other day. You know when the last time groceries were $40 a week? 1975, I looked it up. So if you're not even going to put together a genuine argument, and you're just going to be like, yeah, but some people are having difficulty buying groceries. Yeah, thanks for waking up. You know how long people have had difficulty buying groceries? Since the dawn of time. And every time there's a spike in inflation, and every time there's something that messes up the supply chain, the poor are the ones that keep paying for it. Who amongst the candidates, the Democrats or the Republicans, which group is going to more likely do more good for the working poor? Period. It's not even a question. I guess it is a question, but I mean, this is not subject for debate.
The earlier the guy said something I just want to quickly say, and then we'll jump to the next call. And I'm thinking of anybody who is dropping. We might try to power round you real quick just to
let's
empty out some lines,
get some people to make points, because I don't want to be on until like midnight, but I'm happy to do a show for a while.
Most of the precedent that people are worried about setting regarding I don't think Matt or I have suggested a hostile removal of Biden as president.
No, I would oppose
with
that.
His, if you have his consent and he says he's withdrawing, you don't have to worry as much about, is this going to set a precedent that we just ignore the primaries or whatever else? If he's dropped, then that's, for the most part. Will somebody point to it and go, look, here was a time we had a different candidate? Then sure, but then you'll be able to say, right, but that candidate dropped. We used this system and listened to the people, and that system was brought in when it was necessary because the candidate dropped. It's very important that Biden consents to it.
And it's weird because, let me ask you this, Jimmy, while you're queuing up the next call. I mentioned this just very briefly. We didn't have any primaries. So when we get to the convention, people are coming in where everybody's just, hey, Joe's the presumptive nominee. Which is normally the way it's always done. It's only because there are exceptional circumstances here why we would be having a conversation like this at all. I wonder if there's an incumbent president that's going to be the presumptive nominee, shouldn't they just go ahead and have primaries anyway? Or is that just so costly that 90% of the time it's just going to be wasted money and effort? Maybe 95% of the time.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix
it's a dumb system. And I think that he should have actually participated in it. I will tell you, I was looking up some numbers here. In 2020, Joe Biden won 19 million of the 37 million people who voted in the primary. Now, that was a contested primary. Of course, more people voted at that time. But Trump in 2020 was an incumbent and got 18 million of the 19 million who voted. So now that was the enthusiasm for Trump. And here's just to point out the difference of enthusiasm. In 2024, the Democratic primary, Biden won 14.5 million of 16 million, meaning there was a larger margin of people who protest voted against him. And he wasn't able to even get the same number of primary votes, despite the fact that every 4 years, more people total are eligible to vote. He wasn't even able to match the primary results of Trump in 2020. So again, we should be thinking about that and what the enthusiasm means. Comparing, obviously, the 2020 numbers for Biden, 19 million. He got 19 million of 37 million votes and 14.5 of 16 million. 4 years later, incumbency, that's normal. But comparing the motivation numbers, it should bother you. Let's speed round this shit. So for the people that we mostly agree with, we're probably just going to say, I'm just going to speed round a few of the people who want Biden to stay, to drop, unless there's a weird call that says Biden should drop, Matt is wrong. We'll get to that in a moment. I don't know what that means. Anyway, Janessa in Idaho, very quickly and succinctly, why do you believe Biden should drop?
Hey, Matt. Hey, Jeremy. I will absolutely be succinct for you. The effect that Biden dropping will having, if he gets up one day and says, gracefully gets down, he is going to basically warp the 24-hour news cycle. Like, instead of the news talking about Trump all the fucking time and making him kind of the point of politics, Biden dropping down is going to give voters something new to look at. It's going to encourage young voters because, our voice has been heard. He's dropping out. And all of the other points that have been made previously, I agree with.
Yeah, there's even another point. I'll just put a bow on it. Like I said, we are going to speed round it, but what was I going to energize? Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. Okay.
Yeah, Scott Galloway actually made this point recently. If Biden doesn't drop and he loses, as it looks like he will, think about how many people who loved Ruth Bader Ginsburg and now resent her for not dropping when the opportunity, not resigning when the opportunity came up, and that it was predictable and it was too high of a risk and that she shouldn't have done it, and that they fault her with some level of, and I don't have that same level of resentment, but we know that a lot of people's opinions of her shifted because she was so short-sighted. It will be that on steroids. Joe Biden and Jill Biden together have the ability to become basically Jimmy Carter level of beloved Democratic royalty. Of they did what they needed to do when they did it, and then they continued on prioritizing more than themselves. They could become the most loved Democrats ever, or the most hated. And I think that that's an interesting thing that we'll find out, will play out. But their approval will skyrocket if they do this, I feel, regardless of if Trump wins then against the new candidate. But staying in, they're going to become, not that should matter that much, whether or not you're going to be hated or not, if you think you're doing what's right. But staying in, yeah. Anyway, like I said, we'll keep it. We'll keep it short. Anything you wanted to put on it?
I think I like and agree with what Janessa is saying. I'd love for there to be an open convention. But yeah, I think if Biden were to voluntarily drop and say, you know, I'm going to do something. The Supreme Court has extended unprecedented power to my position as president, and it would be incredibly simple for me to make use of that power. And there are people who are accusing me of using the justice system to go after my political opponents, something that I'm not only not doing, but even now that I have power where I couldn't be prosecuted for it, I'm still not doing it. I'm letting the justice system take its course. I'm also hearing from people who are concerned. I get it. I'm an old man. There are people who aren't going to have as much confidence in me as I'd like for them to have. I still think I'm qualified. I still think I'm the best candidate. I still think I know and understand a great deal about all of these issues. However, I took an oath to serve the Constitution and to serve the American people. And in consultation with the leaders of the Democratic Party, we've come to the conclusion that the right thing for me to do for the betterment of the United States of America is for me to halt my campaign right now, and for the Democratic Party to pick another candidate that will run and will beat Trump and will usher in a clean sweep and blah, 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 something like that. I think you're right, Janessa, that would fundamentally change the news cycle. And there are people who are like, oh, no, stop talking about Biden. Get back to talking about Trump. Get back to talking about Trump. Get back to talking about Trump. Talk about Project 2025. Now, Project 2025 has been a good news cycle, and maybe it's waking some people up. But we've been talking about Trump for 8 fucking years now, and it hasn't made any real perceivable difference in his support from his base. And so, yeah, I'd prefer to shift the narrative away from Trump. And we've done that a little bit with Project 2025, but I think Biden stepping down would do that.
Very energizing.
No,
for sure.
absolutely. You know, like you guys were saying earlier, people generally don't give a crap about like facts. Like they're just going to believe whatever they're going to believe. But this stepping down thing is going to send a lot of energy towards Biden from especially the people who don't want Trump, but also aren't stoked to vote for Biden.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you, Janessa.
Absolutely. Y'all have a good day.
Yeah.
By the way, let's just throw facts and figures out. I'm going to throw out facts and figures that I've been hoarding for a while now. Since 1989, 51 million jobs have been created in America, and 49 million of those, roughly 96%, were created under Democratic presidents. Now, that's since 1989, and people might be like, why did you pick 1989? Because, 80 to 88 is going to be Reagan. But if you move back further and take a look at the past 72 years, there's less difference between whether or not Republicans or Democrats have created more jobs, but it's still staggering because over the last 72 years, the Democratic edge in job creation is still 2-1. In the last 39 years, it's 96% under Democratic presidents, but over the last 72 years, it's 2-1. So if you're worried about jobs for the last 70 some odd years, nobody has created more jobs than Democratic-led administrations.
Do you think if this one's just and this one you might even decide you want to think on, but it's a quick, fun hypothetical. If Biden dropped and Kamala Harris takes the top of the ticket with a new VP, would you prefer he also resign and let the two of them govern as president and vice president until the election?
No.
Or would you have him stay and finish his term?
No, I think the best thing in just off the top of my head, it could be wrong. I'm open to being convinced by you or anybody else that I'm wrong. But I think the best thing would be for him to say, Vice President Kamala Harris is going to be running for president, and we'll have, I don't know, Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, pick somebody, whoever as their VP running mate. If this is the way, it could be the opposite. It could be any number of things. And I'm going to stay here and continue working on the job that I've been working on and focusing every waking minute to the tasks at hand, so that in January, when I hand over this administration to my amazing vice president or to the governor of California or whoever it is, when I hand this administration over, the American people can be confident that there will not only be a peaceful transition of power, but a smooth transition and a maintenance of institutional knowledge and a transition where all parties are on the same page and with the same goal of doing what is right by the American people, blah, 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 blah.
Unfortunately, Harris Newsom is a very, very unlikely ticket because one of them would have to change their residence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
to California.
Newsom can't. He's from California. It's constitutionally, you cannot have from the same state a president and vice presidential pick. There might be a loophole to it to where technically you could, but they just can't vote that way. So you just have to make sure that the majority, that the highest vote was for those two without them on the same vote tickets from the delegates. That might be a loophole that exists, but technically the Constitution doesn't allow a president and vice president from the same state if you interpret it without the loophole.
I'd actually almost prefer well, you couldn't do Katie Porter either because she's also California, but I'd prefer like Pete Buttigieg. I don't think he's got I really like the guy. I liked him when he was running, but not enough to vote for him. I think that's a ticket in 12 years of Katie Porter and Pete Buttigieg. That would be a ticket that I would actually get behind and be excited about.
It'll probably, I imagine if it's Harris, it'd be Harris, Josh Shapiro, because then you get Pennsylvania and you aren't running. And look, we already talked about things that aren't fair, but it's the reality. I don't know that I have confidence in a ticket winning if you put up a woman and a gay guy as the combo. And so I think they would probably go with governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, who a lot of people like. He's a good enough, for the Dems. I think he'd probably be the VP candidate. But
chat's saying Whitmer.
Whitmer is, I like her. She doesn't have the name recognition of the others, and I don't think you necessarily get a new swing state off of her. But again, I would actually say I don't know that a double woman ticket. It's not fair. It isn't fair, but I don't know that I would run a ticket of two women or a woman and a gay guy together at the same time.
If you talk about dream tickets, it's no longer about what's fair. I mean, I got dream tickets that are never going to get elected and never even going to be eligible. But if we're actually talking strategy and what's best for the party in order to do what's right for the country, because by the way, while I'm not beholden to Biden, I am going to be voting blue. And that's partially just because of Trump being the candidate. Let me tell you something. While I disagree with him on countless issues, if Mitt Romney were the nominee,
I was going to say that too.
I would almost, not quite, almost consider picking Romney over Biden in a number of scenarios. I wouldn't do it because I think that there are key issues where I disagree and that I think Biden and the Dems would still be better. But I find Mitt Romney to be of good character, of decent intelligence, and I don't think the world would fall apart. And I think he would oppose and fight against the Supreme Court's overreach into making him a king. But I don't know.
I thought you were going a different direction. I thought you were making it clear the blue note or whoever it is against Trump. I was going to say if somehow they emerge from the DNC and Romney is the nominee against Trump, I would still vote for Romney over Trump.
No. Oh, wow. Yeah. You were thinking if Romney switched parties?
Yeah. Yeah. And basically to go hey, Republicans who like me and want republicanism back, now you can kind of still have me. And yeah, I don't know, but I wouldn't.
Somebody in chat put Harris Romney.
No, I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't I mean, it's not a dream ticket. I mean, I think we can do better. I don't see why we would need to do that. But if somebody came forward and said, "Hey, Joe's dropping out and they've decided Mitt Romney's going to become a Democrat, and so we're going to do Kamala Harris and Mitt Romney. What do you think?" And I'm like, "Well, I can think of worse worlds to live in."
If we're doing dream ticket of just who I'd like the most, I'm not even sure who it would be, but it would make Bernie Sanders look like a Republican. That's how far left I'd go. He's on the political stage for the world. He's only a moderate. Anyway, we should jump in.
Yeah, let's keep going. I will have more facts and figures later.
Biden should not stand down. Biden should drop. Let's bring in, since friend of the show. No, not just friend of the show. She works here at the line. Josie wants to share what could happen at the convention, and then we'll get back to the people who want to argue with us. Josie Caballero, the wonderful, the illustrious, the amazing. How are you doing, Josie?
Hola.
I'm doing well. How are you?
You're well. You're
we're
well
contemplating
after
civil
tonight.
war and the end of the world.
You know me. I'm always gonna be optimistic about everything. But no, you know, I was on Transatlantic Call-In show earlier today. If you didn't watch, tune into that. You better tune in next week. I'll be there. At 2 p.m. Central Time. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to jump in and say hi because I've been a convention delegate 2 times, 2 cycles. I was a Bernie delegate in California twice, and it is a wild time to be a delegate. But I kind of wanted to add a little context about, you were bringing up and talking about this primary and how there really wasn't a contested primary, obviously, and the selection process of the delegates, because I don't think it's talked about enough. I don't think it's talked about, like, who gets to be a delegate, what are these delegates, you know, the process, and every state has a different process. In California, it's actually the most democratic because you can just apply to be a delegate and then there's election. 1/3 is people from the community and the districts, 1/3 is from like the Democratic County Central Committees, and then 1/3 are like elected officials and at-large type selection process. But what's unique about this process in this convention is that everybody were selected and approved by the Biden campaign. In a contested primary, you have some people become Bernie delegates and pledge to Bernie, for example, Harris, Warren, all of that type of stuff. So at the convention in 2020, there was a mix of so many different people that came from different campaigns because they supported those campaigns, and the votes from the states went that way. So what we are looking at this convention are nearly 100% of the delegates being committed to Biden and selected by Biden and approved by Biden and his campaign. So the idea of the delegates being let free, let's say if Biden drops out and the candidates can vote for whoever they want, they're still all Biden loyalists. So essentially, whoever Biden says, I want to be the president, or I want to be the nominee, everybody's just going to line up and just go that way. And that I didn't. Yeah. So what I would love to hear your thoughts on that, if you've thought about that at all.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing I was talking about earlier. It has to be with his consent and not just a consent to a new person, which I assume if he was going to pick a new person, he would pick his vice president. And in a way, I'd almost hope so, even if he was like, even if he thought that maybe there would be somebody better, that he would recognize it would almost be fucked up for him not to. But I think he alternatively could support a process like the thing I was laying out at the beginning of the show of leading up to the convention. We're going to have this week of awesome debates and we're going to choose amongst there. And then Biden is going to say to the delegates, vote for the one you like the most without necessarily endorsing his replacement until they've been picked. Basically, like, it's like a faux primary. It adds an element of choice. As you mentioned, Josie, these aren't necessarily going to be an electorate that of delegates that actually represent anything but Biden supporters. So it might even be predictable who they would go with. But for him to sort of not just release them, but endorse a process over a candidate, I think would be the best thing. But I imagine the most likely thing is him saying, I am going to give Vice President Harris my endorsement for the nomination, and that ultimately that's who would get it.
Yeah, that's most likely it. Like and even if like in the unlikely scenario, Biden's like, vote your conscience, like they're still going to pick a very establishment type of person. It's not going to be that far off. But I agree. I believe it would be a Harris pick because of the fact that she's already been on the ballot. She has the ability to inherit the entire Biden machine. Currently, Biden
The
has,
money.
according to his, the money, right? That's what this is about too. So $220 million apparently cash on hand, according to Biden.
But Josie,
press conference today. Yeah.
I actually think that we should, I hope they aren't thinking about that too much, because so we know that there's a bunch of large donors and middle, sort of like the middle of the, not individual donors, but the large donors, and then the donor group that can raise a lot because it's bigger donations, but not in the millions. I think that this would be so energizing. Like, look at what Trump raised for just getting convicted. It was way more than all of what Biden has in the bank right now. He did that in like a weekend and doubled it, because it was something like 400 to 500 million or something crazy.
Out? Is that
number
wasn't
out?
It? I don't think it's out.
In the wake of the conviction, I thought he raised $400 million.
I don't trust those numbers until I see them. I don't trust Trump as far as he can throw them. Like,
sure,
he'll make up numbers off the top of his head and say it until those numbers come out, which I'm not sure.
He wasn't the only source on it, for the record. But let me look. I'll try and find it while you keep responding.
Because
but I don't think we should care about. I think we could raise $1 billion in a month with a new candidate. I don't think 220 million bothers me at all.
Yeah, well, the 220 million is cash on hand, right? You're talking about the offices, the people on the ground, the staff. All of that infrastructure was built over hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yep. Could Biden spend it all before the convention if he knows he's going to open it all? Because you could also potentially do that.
You could, but again, it's that convention delegates are pretty much just, soldiers to whatever Biden's will is. So there's really not going to be a lot that's going to go down. I mean, for example, I didn't get selected as a Maryland delegate, which I thought I was. I have connections within the Biden campaign, and I was like, I thought I was a shoo-in. But even the Maryland infrastructure was like, nope, we're going to pick our people. And so they are like establishment. They're there to just follow orders of the Democratic Party. Even I was too much of a radical agent for the state of Maryland, which I thought was bizarre. And so there is a lot there. But as far as vice presidential picks, I think you're very spot on. I think of Ben Shapiro, not Ben Shapiro, sorry, wrong.
I was like, what the fuck just happened to Josie?
I'm having a
Biden and Josie just swapped names. That was an epic fucking fail.
Can you imagine the presidential, the sign that's on the back of everybody's trucks, and it's just a pair of eyes looking through eyebrows?
Oh my God. Oh God. So yes, Governor Shapiro would be a good choice. I think, and from one of the swing states, I think that would be good. I think at this point, the Democratic Party, or the people, I think you said it already, the people of the United States would be so grateful to the Democratic Party for listening. They'd be grateful to Biden.
Right.
I will make this point because I've been thinking about it a lot, is how American mythology is built on like George Washington stepping away from power instead of being a ruler. And I was just thinking, I'm like, why doesn't Joe Biden want to be known as a modern day George Washington, of just like,
he could go
away?
up and sing. What if Biden announced it by singing One Last Time from Hamilton?
I know, right? Yeah, done, right? Like, let's do it. I will. I've even said it out loud. I'm like, if Biden does the right thing for the American people, I will put a picture of Biden on my wall. Like, as a person that I will be like, yes, Biden was one of the greatest humans on the planet for stepping away when he knew he could, and will probably go down in history as the best one-term president that of our lifetimes. And
Matt's
I
going to
don't
put it as
understand
a
why
tattoo next to the cat.
What I really want, because I don't know enough about the convention in this scenario to know what is likely or what can potentially happen. I agree. Nothing's happening without Biden's approval.
he has to drop out.
And I want to figure out, granted, I'm nobody. There's no reason for the Biden campaign to come reaching out to me for my thoughts on this. And honestly, my thoughts are still malleable based on new information. I don't know what the best thing is to happen. But I tell you this, if Biden voluntarily stepped down and supported and promoted a new Democratic ticket that ends up winning, I would absolutely tattoo Biden on this. Nobody would want that. Nobody would need that. But it's like, this is West Wing dream fantasy stuff of getting the president we all wish we had. Biden's fine. And better than a number of other options. And he's done way better than most people want to give him credit for on a number of different things, because most people don't understand the value and necessity of compromise. We live with the modern generation, and this, okay, somebody's going to do the, Matt's just an old guy that's saying, get off my lawn. No, I am genuinely encouraged by the younger generations. But the truth is, most of them haven't served in the military in the way that myself and the generations before me did. Most of them have benefited from growing up with the wealth that was generated in the 90s. Most of them are in a position where they have enough privilege where they can, like the person the other day that was like, hey, look, Trump was president once before and the world didn't end. And I'm like, yeah, it fucking kind of did. And I don't know why you think it's going to be better when the Supreme Court's given him fucking godlike powers. So I would love to have, President Bartlett take over. I would love to have an incredible person of character demonstrate that they can put the country and the Constitution above themselves. And I think that, when Joe says that he's not, worried about his legacy, I think that's probably true, because if he, as it stands right now, his legacy's intact. I would be worried about continuing to run that would destroy his legacy. And I think that that's what somebody he respects needs to go and have a talk with him about, which is, we love you, you're awesome, your legacy is intact, but if you don't drop out, and if this goes poorly, if you don't drop out and you don't win, your legacy is dead. And I know that you say you don't necessarily care about your legacy and stuff, but how can you view Trump as the worst president ever, which is generally agreed to by experts and historians, and then make the move that allowed him a second term?
Yeah.
What does that do for a legacy?
Yeah. I 100% agree. And, and that's why when the reporter pressed him, and I think this will probably be all over the news cycles tomorrow, is when they said, you said you were going to step aside. You ran on a platform that you were going to do one term and you were going to pass it to the younger generation. What changed? And he really didn't have an answer for that. And so for me, it's like, we are going to he has to come with a reckoning. And I had a friend tell me yesterday, she was like, we just need to put a little speaker in his room that says, Joseph, my son, this is the Lord Almighty. Please drop out. And they just have that on like repeat. It's like, and because it's like when he says it will take the Lord Almighty, which I think we all know how that feels, is going to have to come down from the heavens to say, oh, you're going to have to drop out. It's like we have to think about, who does he consider the Lord Almighty in politics? Nancy Pelosi, possibly Hakeem Jeffries, the entire Senate, and
Obama. Honestly,
and
like
Obama.
That's the number one. Not only do I think that's the number one guy who could get him to drop, I think that that's already happening, and that George Clooney was stage one. That getting George Clooney to write that op-ed is almost getting Obama to do it.
Well, you do know the story, right? Like, George Clooney called Barack Obama. And do you think that Barack Obama, if do you think Barack Obama would have been like, don't do it? George Clooney would have said, okay, I'm not. But the fact
I agree. That's why I say I think it's about the same.
Yeah, it is about the same. You're right. And so we're going to see a reckoning. And the reality is this, and this is something that Biden's kind of leaning on right now. The polls before and after the debate didn't really change that much in the general scheme of things. And what that shows, and what should educate the Democrats on this, is that people were already not bought into Biden, and were already concerned about his age. And I do think that most Americans are going out there thinking, and were solidified in their belief, that age is the biggest issue. And because of this issue, the only thing we can do is put up a younger candidate. And I'll say it because it needs to be said. If it's Biden at the end, I'm going to vote for Biden. I'm going to fight for Biden. I'm going to go to Michigan. I'm going to campaign for Biden. That's going to happen because we can't let Trump win, because we can't let trans rights and queer rights fall back 50 years. But the fact of the matter is, it's making our jobs a hell of a lot harder, and we need to listen to the people and do the right thing. And it's not we, it's Biden. And it's so frustrating. And this is why contested primaries matter. And we need to start running candidates and doing contested primaries no matter what. This incumbency crap has got to go.
It's one of the things that frustrates me that I've talked about probably over and over again. There's some things that are almost like a mantra to me when it comes to voting. About, let me come up with an example that shows why if you don't vote, you're part of the problem. But people will be like, oh, I'm going to vote for third party, or I'm going to vote what my conscience dictates. Look, there may be people who disagree with me on this, but nobody's presented me in any sort of compelling argument as to why I'm wrong. Go ahead in primaries and vote your conscience. Vote for the candidate that you think is best, and encourage other people to do that. When Elizabeth Warren and Bernie and Joe were all in the primaries, I voted in the early primary for Elizabeth Warren. Actually, no. By the time that it came here on this last one for me to vote for Warren, it was already being projected that she was dropping out. So I voted for Bernie in that one. Vote for whoever. Then once there's a nominee, stop your fucking whining about the third party and how you didn't get your pony, and come to the fucking rodeo with the rest of us and support the pony that did get in.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And, and this is where we are. And whatever happens after the convention and the nominations are done, that's what we're stuck with. And I hope people understand that we cannot allow Trump to win. That is the number one thing. And I just hope that Biden and Obama is talking to him, and Nancy Pelosi, like Tim Kaine came out. Like, there's so many people now that are saying, Biden, please, please, please do the patriotic thing here. And it's only going to get louder and louder. And I think when Hakeem Jeffries sees that his speakership's on the line, I think we're going to start seeing him turn too.
I think he's already gestured that he's turning. I think he's done as much as he can, knowing that I can't directly publicly call for him to drop, because if he never drops, and wins somehow, I'd still be in trouble. And he's done as much as I think you can say. And if he was against it, I think you'd see more Mike Johnson level stuff from the right that he does sometimes, where it's like, shut up and fall in line, everybody. But Hakeem isn't doing that. I
it's
think
very
he's
light,
gesturing.
and because what's going to happen is Hakeem's going to get the blame for not taking the House as well, because he's the
Yep.
one that's taken over. So it's like this is also his career on the line. So this is something that we have to think about, because Biden could be potentially standing in the way of getting the first Black Speaker of the House in American history, and that's just another thing that could be a huge issue. But anyways, I just wanted to say hi and give my give some of my thoughts and my experience about the DNC convention. I do think that if Biden does voluntarily step down, that he's going to probably point Harris, and everybody's just going to fall in line and do that. And if you haven't come on and watched the Transatlantic Call-In show, all of you viewers right here, you better do it every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central. And yeah, I wanted to call because I want to. So.
Thank you, Josie.
That was perfect.
Bye.
See ya.
Yep.
See you later. Thank you.
I was tempted to belt out just one last time. I'm serious, not a joke. Just do that in between each term. You just play the song and you just serious, not a joke in between each line. It'd be beautiful. I want to
listening to the press conference. I was frustrated by it. Look, and then it's not going to happen. It's not good. I don't know what this is with the whispering. I get it. It's one of the quirks of how he communicates, but man, sorry.
I think he tried to set a new record for the anyway trail off also.
Yeah,
the number of times anyway. And then a few times you could see he was surprised to realize he got the thought back and then continued on, which I was like, if we're used to you saying anyway means you're giving up on the thought, don't pull us back in. That's basically a period for you. How dare you? As in an end of a sentence. Yeah. I'm interested with this. Everin, they, them from Wisconsin. I'm very curious by the note. It said you said that you looked up inflation, that Biden said inflation had gone down, but stats I just looked up don't reflect that. I don't know what you mean by that, and then I want to hear why you say Biden should stay. But the fact of the matter is that the peak of inflation was, and they measure it on year over year, was in June of last year, no, of 2022, when it was 9%, and now it is 3%. So I don't know what you mean by it hasn't fallen. Do you mean that inflation hasn't become a negative?
I just want to check to make sure my speaker sounds okay. That I'm not
we hear
speaking.
you. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
You sound good.
So he didn't give the numbers in the conference today, but when I looked it up, the numbers were 9% and 6%. That it had gone from 6% up to 9%.
The peak,
but also
9% was. Hang on, 9% was the peak 2 years ago, not now.
Okay.
I think you looked at an article from 2022 and read it as though it was now, because right now inflation is 3%.
Yeah, if you look at the annual inflation rate, not just the peak. So like even in 2021, where it was 7, and then in 2022 it looks like the annual was lower at 6.5, but the peak was in June at 9.1. And so in June of 2022 it was 9.1% inflation. And it has since then gone 8.5, 8.3, 8.2, 7.7, 7.1, 6.5, 8.0, 6.4, 6.0, 5.0, 4.9, 4.0, 3.0. And so it dropped steadily from June of 2022 to June of 2023, then peaked just a little bit at 3.2, 3.7, 3.7, 3.2, 3.1, 3.4, 4.1. And then in 2024, it was 3.1, 3.2, 3.5, 3.4, 3.3, and now it's 3.0. So between June of 2022, where it was at its peak of 9.1%, peak in modern times, I don't know if there was one prior to 2000, because I'm not looking that far back, to now it's dropped to 3. That's Bureau of Labor Statistics.
I think for me, okay, so I'm very much uninformed, and I think my mistake was my gaffe here is that he was talking about inflation in the conference, and I think I looked up specifically grocery inflation, and so that's I think where I'm pulling those numbers from.
Okay. So inflation numbers, the way we measure inflation is a percentage based on price this year versus last year. So if 1 year ago today, the price was up 6%, and today inflation is 3%, then overall you actually add the two and prices are up 9%. So inflation is in the positive. If it's in the positive, that means the price is always going up, but the rate of inflation is what they are trying to curve. To correct inflation and get prices back down, if you're thinking like, who's going to get our groceries back to the prices they were in 2016, that requires negative inflation. And negative inflation very, very rarely happens. In fact, the last time it happened was negative 0.2% in 2015 before the Trump administration took over. We started getting inflation. The COVID inflation started happening. Then Biden policies took inflation down to almost 0% despite that. And then the wars happened and now we have spiked up. But yes, if inflation is positive at any point, and this is how every president has gotten to measure it. So you don't get to change the rules just because when you realize that the scale's kind of bullshit, but it is kind of like the way we measure how many jobs there are. Kind of bullshit considering we now have a gig economy and people actually have less good paying jobs with like benefits and healthcare and more people are contractors than ever. But unfortunately, these are the numbers we measure by. If inflation is in the positive, prices are always going up, even if inflation has been reduced.
I think also one of the things that's difficult for me to understand is because where do we start counting the numbers for a specific administration? So, I mean, that kind of stuff also plays a
But Biden did
role.
Biden corrected stuff by May and got in January. And you can also directly tie that to policies and things that were happening. So, but again, inflation definitely exploded. And now we are down to 3%. I hope we go to negative. I really do, Everin. I really hope we go to negative inflation.
Do we have time to discuss any of the other things that I had on my call screener?
You said you think Biden should stay in the race.
Yeah, I do. If the reality is that, and I don't understand it because the reality is that he has the incumbent advantage, and although I disagree with it, I just think that for most people that's just the status quo, and so for that reason, if he had dropped out with enough time to set up primaries, which I don't understand why we don't do that consistently. I don't understand why we just assume the incumbent can still run, but I just don't understand why we don't always have people choosing the nominees we want, constantly.
Sure, but Everin, let's go back to the incumbent advantage real quick. He has the incumbent advantage. Did that work for the incumbent in 2020?
No, but people hate the shit out of it.
Right. And the two of them have historically low approval numbers at their end of office. So the incumbent didn't win in 2020. What changes happens to the incumbent advantage if the incumbent runs against a former president, basically a secondary incumbent? We don't. Sorry, it's a bit of a trick question. We don't know, but clearly it's something. And in fact, if you look at voter enthusiasm and the primary enthusiasm, Trump had more enthusiasm this primary than Biden did. So if anything, if you wanted to defend from right here, one of the positions where we don't know how an ex-president would fare as far as incumbent advantage, it actually would appear Trump currently has an incumbent advantage.
Okay, that's an interesting. That's an interesting thing to think about.
Yep. I think everybody should drop the idea of an incumbent advantage, especially when the numbers, I don't remember what it is, but it's crazy high. I think it's above 80% of people want somebody different than Trump Biden. anybody different than Trump Biden.
It's also an extremely unique election, so.
Yep, it is. With, again, two very low polled candidates for approval rating. Unfortunately, one of them still has to win, which if they end up together, one of them will make history as the first person to become president with that low of an approval rating, because they both are that low. And so one of them has to break it if they're both in.
Somebody said that negative inflation would trigger recession.
Long term, but if we're talking about correcting for, so if you have like a short term inflation because of something like a war or shit, short term corrections of, we didn't have a recession after 2015 because we had a short term correction of negative inflation. It wasn't very big negative inflation, but we haven't had a recession since. Yeah, well, and before that, that was the last time. Before that, I think it went down to like 0.5% in 20. But the most recent was
in 2015.
Yeah,
April it was negative 0.2.
Okay. Yeah, negative 0.2. But that's still good. I mean, that's still something. And it's still, yeah, those kinds of corrections can happen short term, but you don't want long term. Well, I don't want capitalism. So let's not just talk about what we want. But anyway.
In 2009, there was a 6-month period where it was persistently negative. It's funny, though, when you look at it starting in January, like when somebody takes office. And so in 2008, we had the election. And throughout 2008, inflation was at 4 to 5%, and then it dropped right the instant the election was over. So it went in October, November of 2008. It dropped from 3.7% to 1.1%, and Obama takes over in January with 0 inflation, and about 4 months later, there's like a 4 or 5 months period where there's consistent negative 0.4, 0.7, 1.4, 2.1, etc. And then there's all this healthy 1 to 4% that represents growth that you're expecting, that you're constantly working against. And it goes that way all the way through Obama's presidency until right at the 2015, the economy goes flat. And then 2016, we're having the election and it's 1.4, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, all across the board. And then boom, January of 2017, when Trump takes office, it hits 2.5, and then it stays in a healthy flat thing for almost the entirety of Trump's presidency. It's 1 point, or it's 2.5 to in that range. It's all under 3%, and some of it's dead near perfect. It's where you want inflation to be. I don't know.
Yeah, the interesting thing, though, is you can tie the things he did, like the tax cuts and deregulating, to that number of being that steady and contributing to why it exploded later. Literally, this is why Republicans love tax cuts, because they know that the other side eventually gets power and their tax cut is going to cause an overall economic improvement short term, and long term, when you have to fix what the tax cut fucked up, well, it's going to be the Democrats who do it, and they can pretend that it's meaning that the Democrats are ruining the economy. It's kind of brilliant, and it's a lot of why everything that sucks right now is Ronald Reagan's fault. They do a lot of these long-term things of we can show short-term victories that have long-term issues and blame whoever we need to blame with short-term victories with long-term failures. It sucks. Anyway, did you have any other reason why you believe that Biden should stay in? Besides the incumbent advantage? Yeah, I wouldn't stick to the incumbent advantage. There's no good reason to believe they still have it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying you don't let that, you can have, but what if they do potentially, but you need a stronger case than that. And I think even Joe is starting to understand he needs a stronger case than this.
God, I hope so.
All right, Evan. Thank you for calling.
Next call, we should take the one that says I'm wrong.
That was the one I was saying. I'm so confused by it because it says Matt is wrong for once. Biden should drop. I don't understand. But let's find out. Datham,
Yeah, I'm here.
you believe Matt is
It's
wrong.
that ham.
Diane is that what you said?
That ham. I made a Christmas ham one time. It was bomb.
Oh, got it. Okay, Dat Ham.
Got it.
You say Matt is
Yep.
wrong because Biden should drop.
Yes, sir.
And what
How
is
does that
Matt's
make me wrong?
position?
Oh, well, first I want to say, like, Matt, I have a lot of respect for you, man. I really love what you do. Please don't
I
give
don't
up
care.
on us. You know, I know. I appreciate your. No, wait. I want to say my thing. I know. I just want to say my thing. You know, I
Okay,
really
okay, you said
appreciate
it now.
guys'
Dad Ham,
arms.
stop. This is off to a terrible start. Just,
All right,
I asked a question. What
I
is
just wanted to
Matt's
say that. I just
position?
want to say that. Okay.
I got you. What's Matt's
Matt wants
position?
Biden to stay in. Matt wants Biden to stay in.
Really? When did I say that?
Well, I apologize if I'm mistaken, but I need the. Let me start by this. Somebody told the Wright brothers they couldn't fly, right? Things that can't be done.
No, Dad Ham.
No,
No, Dad Ham.
Oh,
Dad Ham.
mhm.
Dad Ham, I don't
Uh-huh,
need
uh-huh.
a story about the fucking Wright brothers. You called in to say I was wrong and that
Right.
Biden should drop. I've already
Yeah.
stopped talking.
Oh, you're
Stop
totally up.
talking. Stop talking.
Yes, sir.
I've already said that I am 75% in favor that Biden should drop. Whether or not he will, I'm maybe 50 to 55% on whether or not he will. How can you call in when my position is that Biden should drop out and say that I'm wrong and that Biden should drop out?
Well, because you've been advocating for him to stay, like you would still vote for him. The thing is that he
Yes,
should
I'm
drop out
still
now.
going to fucking vote for him over Trump, you dolt. That's a separate issue than whether I think he should drop out. Instead of assuming, like you did in fucking chat before you got banned, that you know and understand my position, then you call in to demonstrate that you do not know and understand my position, and you're confusing the fact that I will absolutely shut up. I will absolutely vote for Biden even if he's dead. That is completely separate from whether or not I think the right thing for him to do might be to drop out. Now, I tried to explain this shit to you in chat, but now you called in and got on hold so you could call in and tell me that I'm wrong while agreeing with me. Are we done?
Well,
Are we
no.
done?
Well, I just got another thing.
No, you don't.
Well, yeah, I wanted to say something. I can't say nothing.
Sure.
I just wanted to
Let's see what the next words out of your mouth are.
I understand what you're saying. I just think that you should be using your words more for Joe Biden to drop out.
Go
So
fuck yourself.
advocating that.
You don't tell me how to use my fucking words just because you can't understand. I tried to explain this bullshit to you, Dat Ham, in fucking chat before your ass got banned. I'm not the one that is failing at understanding the communication here. Everybody else in chat, or the majority of people in chat, seem to get it. Jimmy seemed to get it. We've had this conversation over and over again. It's not my fault that you don't understand what I'm saying. And it's not my fault that you decided to call in and say that I was wrong while actually agreeing with me. I can explain it to you. I can't understand it for you, but you're not going to tell me how you think I should be using my words, because I don't give a fuck what you think about how I use my words. All I care about is what is the most effective plan to make sure that Trump and Project 2025 does not come to fruition. That's it. Even you want to know how serious I am about this? Even fucking trans rights are second to making sure that the right wing in 2025 doesn't get in, because that will destroy trans rights as well. When the house is on fire, you put out the fire. You don't argue about whose hose you're using or where you got it or how much it cost. You don't argue about whether or not it's how it started, whose fault it was. The house is on fucking fire. We need to put the fire out.
Yeah. Gina in Ohio, why should Biden not drop out?
How are you guys today?
Exhausted.
Biden should not. Biden should not drop out. 100% he should not drop out, because number one, an incumbency does matter. I don't know if you've heard of Alan Lichtman, but he has that 13-point chart thing, and that is one of the points that is a winner for the Democrats.
Gina, we already had this
Number
conversation, so I guess we'll do it again very shortly. How do you know who has the incumbent advantage between Trump and Biden right now?
Because Biden is the president. That's how you
Biden is
know.
currently
Just
the
like when
official
Johnson was the
incumbent.
president.
Hang on, Gina. Did Trump get an incumbent advantage during the presidential primaries for the RNC this year, despite not being the literal incumbent? Yes or no?
Did Trump get an? In all actuality, I don't believe he did. I believe he forced it upon them. He forced it upon them.
Trump got the incumbent advantage. No one else had a shot at taking him down. He didn't even. The only reason he could force it on them, Gina, was because he had the incumbent advantage. That's why he has the power to do that.
No,
Gina.
because he was the fucking incumbent. Not because he's a bully, Gina, because he was actually fucking president.
That's how he got the power. So until you can demonstrate that Biden has an incumbent advantage that Trump either doesn't also have or Trump has significantly less, since he is a former president, I do not care whether or not the professor's 13 points lists as an incumbent advantage. And as I mentioned, Gina, Trump had the incumbent advantage in 2020, and it didn't win it to him for him.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, he's a bully.
Whatever.
I get it. I fucking hate him as much or more than anybody you're going to find. And yes, he's a bully, but he did not get an advantage by bullying. He got the advantage by winning the election and serving as president. That's how that happens.
Yes, I agree with that. When he was president, yes, he did. But then when he lost to Joe Biden, the only reason he became the incumbent, I believe, in for this election was because he has fodder. He has crap on these people, and they are all.
I'm not interested in your conspiracy theory bullshit, Gina.
It's not that. Okay. All right. That's
Gina,
fine.
Actually, Gina, I will engage it. I'm not going to let you explain them, but I'm just going to grant it to you. Let's grant to you that all of those things are correct. How did he get the power to collect all of those things against the right-wing people who would challenge him, amongst which was Vivek Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis, who are also bullies. So being a bully isn't the thing, but how did he have, what caused him to have enough power to be able to stop anyone else from running against him, even if your conspiracies are true? Was it being the president?
But what I believe that he got the power, was it what?
Was it what was becoming the president the thing that granted him that power?
No, I don't even think that was it, because he shouldn't have became the president
Gina,
to begin with.
Okay, then I'm done entertaining your silly conspiracies, because that's clearly the answer.
I understand what you're saying.
It's because he's the incumbent. Any power you are describing and having is a power from his incumbency, because he didn't have that power in 2016.
Okay, I agree. I see what you're saying.
And he did in 2020.
And I agree with that. Okay.
Gina?
Right.
Who does he have dirt? Gina, who does he have dirt on, and how do you know?
I don't necessarily know verbatim.
Then stop claiming it.
Say from what I.
Then stop claiming it.
That's fine.
It doesn't do us any good. You could be right, and I even suspect that he probably has dirt on all kinds of people. I think that's the way a lot of things happen.
And it doesn't do us any good to profess that.
Jesus fucking Christ. But even if he has dirt on people, you don't have any way to demonstrate it. Just like if you go through the Epstein documents and look for his name on there, and you look at the court case that was thrown out after the complainant was essentially kind of yes, keep talking, where Trump supposedly sexually assaulted 2 underage girls, and that thing never came through. I believe that actually happened, but I don't get to come out here on the show and make a case for that or claim that it's thus and so, because first of all, we'd get fucking sued, and second of all, a claim is not evidence. And so if you start making claims that sound like conspiracy theories of, oh, he's got dirt on people and that's how he's bullying them and manipulating them, and you can't prove it, you look like a lunatic, especially when he has lots of other things that would allow him to do that power, including money and the fact that he was the fucking president. You can't make a case for your suspicions and try to use that. There's enough wrong with this guy who fomented an insurrection, who stacked the court in order to not only give him godly powers if he ever becomes president again, but to overturn Roe v. Wade. You could talk about how he mocked reporters, how he paid off porn stars, how he's guilty of 34 felony accounts. We don't need to go anywhere near. Yes, he's probably got dirt on people and maybe blackmailing people. He probably, you know what I hear more often than almost anything else, is that he's got dirt on Jeff Sessions. Maybe he does, but I don't have any way to prove it. So I don't sit here and talk about stuff that I can't demonstrate, because that puts me in the same category as conspiracy theorists and religious individuals. And none of that gets us anywhere near flipping votes to you're going to vote blue, Gina. I'm going to vote blue. Doesn't matter what's going on here. We're both fucking so anti-Trump and the right wing and Project 2025. That's what's going on. We need to figure out how to convince people who aren't going to vote blue to vote blue. And I guarantee you, running around talking about the suspicions about how Trump's bullying people with blackmail, that he got dirt. I guarantee you, well, all right, I guess I can't say that I guarantee you because I don't know. I have no reason to think that that's a good strategy.
May I interrupt? I will give you that. Okay, my bad. But I will say this. We can convince people if the Democratic Party can get behind their candidate that they have at this moment. He has been a good president. He is still running this country. He can't be that off the mark. Okay?
Great,
and
Gina. You just gave an if, and the answer is they can't. You said if they can do it and they can't. So what's your next point? Since your if was that they can't.
They're bad. They are their own worst enemy.
No shit, Gina. No shit. The America voted in Trump against its own interest. People are stupid. The people whose votes we need to win back are not brilliant minds. There's probably a couple in there, but are not. These are people who are not putting facts above everything else, Gina. If facts mattered above everything else, his approval numbers would be higher. They're not. Of course, Gina, that is it. I already said that I was not going to entertain a single argument of this isn't fair. Correct. It's not fucking fair. It's the reality we're in.
Okay. So what are you
And
saying?
the reality is we should be much more adamant about what the media says, how the media reacts to Joe Biden.
And we're not.
And
we're not.
The Democratic Party.
Give me more.
They have
how many more shoulds you want to give?
The Democratic Party hurts themselves. They have no spine.
Okay. How did the Democratic Party hurt themselves by sticking with the incumbent president and making him the presumptive nominee?
How do they show spine, like you said?
In what regards are you? What are you saying? What are you asking me, please?
What should the Democratic Party have done differently?
What they should have done differently and what they should be doing differently is standing behind their candidate that is the incumbent, that's standing behind a president that has got a lot of good to this country.
He hasn't been made the nominee yet, but did you watch the press conference today?
Yes, I did.
Cool.
Yes, I did.
How competent and inspired, how confident are you after listening to Biden at that press conference that he's the right guy for the job?
As confident as I was in 2020.
Then I don't know how to talk to you. I don't know how to talk to you because I'm definitely not as confident. I don't think he did anything to instill confidence. He literally called his vice president Trump instead of Harris. He confused names multiple times.
His whole life.
It's not a fucking stutter, Gina.
He's had a
It's
stutter,
not
he
a
had a brain
stutter.
aneurysm, he's gone through a whole lot of stuff. I have an
And then
81-year-old
maybe he shouldn't be
grandmother that-
fucking president.
Or maybe he should, and to take this country back to where it's going to be. We don't want Trump.
Yeah.
The only one that's going to beat him is going to be Biden.
No,
No.
there we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. We got finally to the fucking heart of it, Gina. Where is your fucking evidence
Yes,
that the
the only
only
one that's
person...
going to beat him is going to be Biden.
Gina, shut up. Where is your evidence that the only person who can beat Trump is Biden? Go.
Because the only one that beat him in 2020 was Biden. The only one that's going to beat him again is going to be Biden.
He's the
And I'm
only
gonna
one
tell you
who
that
ran
the polls,
against him in
as far as the polls-
2020.
Well, when I got my first
And as far as
blowjob,
the
that
polls-
means that's the only
polls, I
person
don't
who can
believe
blow
are
me
even
forever.
accurate.
But this bullshit can blow me left and
You
right.
can only wish.
The fact that somebody did something once doesn't mean that they can do it again, and it doesn't mean that they're the only person who can do it again. Your argument is fallacious, period.
Gina, should Ruth Bader
Let me ask you
Ginsburg
this.
had
Let me
stop?
ask this one question.
No,
Let me ask
Gina,
this
no.
question.
You're gonna answer my
If
questions.
Biden-
You're gonna
if
answer
Biden
mine.
does
Gina,
step
you're gonna
down
answer
and then
my
they
questions, or I
slowly-
swear I'm gonna fucking hang up on you. Shut up.
That's fine.
You
Go
will
ahead.
answer my questions.
Go ahead.
Gina, should Ruth Bader Ginsburg have resigned during the Obama administration so that we could have replaced her with a Democrat instead of Amy Coney Barrett? Yes or no?
She's gone.
Okay, fuck you.
No, that was me.
She just has a bunch of assertions. All she conjecture
you
is
were
not
like-
evidence.
When you were saying you'd hang up on, and she was like, "Fine, do it." At that point, I just did it. The thing here is, you don't get. You can come in and say that you're convinced that Biden's the only one who has a real shot, and maybe you're right, and maybe you can present evidence for that, but you can't assert that merely because he's the only one who has done it, he's the only one who can do it. Because first of all, everybody's 4 years older and 4 years different, and in between then and now, when he won last time, things have changed, including a Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, which should have set up a Democratic landslide, clean sweep win, taking over everything. And it hasn't. And while I'm here saying that if Biden doesn't step out, I will continue to support him. And I'm going to be voting blue no matter who. I'm still, if you say, how confident am I that the right move would be for Biden to step out? I'm about 75% on that. I'm open to being swayed either way. But you know what's never going to sway me? A bullshit assertion that Biden's the only one who can, from someone who was advocating for conspiracy theorist crap that they can't demonstrate. I'm not taking any bald assertions without evidence from theists or atheists, from right wing or left wing. It's bullshit when you are going to say, we should all fall in line behind Biden because he's the only one that can win. No, fuck you and fuck that idea. I don't fall behind somebody merely because somebody who can't put together an argument without appealing to conspiracy theorists says that he's the only one that can win. If the data shows, or if the data show that Biden's the only one that can win, then I'll believe he's the only one that can win. But you don't have data. You got your suspicions. And that's why we're stuck.
If anything, I think I can use data to defend that the only people that Trump and Biden can beat are each other. That virtually, if we were to switch Trump out for Nikki Haley, for example, and Trump doesn't sink it, so it would have to be, again, another with their consent, and Trump doesn't form a third party. If Haley had Trump's endorsement and Nikki Haley was, Biden would lose this election by a lot, and vice versa. You put in Gavin Newsom, you put in even Kamala Harris, even though she's got some tie to Biden, they will all defeat. This is why I've wanted him to drop before the old age thing. I legitimately think that the data best supports a situation in which pretty much all of them can beat Trump except maybe Biden. Now, can you fuck that up by doing things too brashly and waiting way too long and waiting until he's, if sometime between he stays in and then in September has some major health event?
Here's the thing.
That could fuck it up.
I know we got 2 more calls left. Let me hit this thing. First of all, people are like, oh, I'm worried about what might happen to Biden. Well, the truth is anybody could die any day and anybody can have a problem any day. And we have a constitution that sets up a process under which we deal with a president who's defunct or dead or problematic. What if, in reality, there is no scenario under which Trump doesn't win? What if Biden stays in, he loses, and anybody else that we decide to put in also loses? What if the reality is that nothing we do changes the fact that Trump gets elected in 2024? If that's the case, we have no way of demonstrating it because we don't have a time machine and we can't rewind time and try out every fucking scenario. So all we can do is look at it statistically. But if it is the case, and I don't think it's impossible that there is no scenario that we have any reasonable hope of implementing under which Trump doesn't become president. What's the Democratic Party going to do? Are we going to say, ooh, let's blame Biden? Ooh, let's blame whoever we replace Biden with. Ooh, let's blame Hakeem Jeffries. Boom, let's blame somebody else. Where does the blame rest? And does it matter? Because to me, what matters is saying, okay, that scenario didn't work. Can we find one that does? Because while we can sit here and go, oh, Biden should have dropped out, or no, Biden shouldn't have dropped out, or, oh, we should have done this candidate, or, oh, no, we shouldn't have done this candidate. Until we find a path that is likely to work and does work, I don't know what else to do. Is it too late?
Yeah. Just so you know, stuttering does not include saying a different word.
Yeah.
It includes having difficulty finishing a sentence or getting a specific word out or getting kind of speech locked somewhere. Saying Vice President Trump is not a result of a stutter. Calling Zelensky President Putin is not the result of a stutter. Neither of which in isolation are necessarily a sign of any problem. But the cumulative case...
Asia, Europe is not a stutter. But by the way, I don't care if he's got a stutter. And you know what? I don't care if he messes up names and words on occasion under fire, because he can and does on many occasions correct his misspeaking. And if anybody had said, excuse me, Mr. President, just a minute ago, you referred to your vice president as Trump. I think you meant Vice President Harris, and were commenting that she could, of course, beat Trump. And Biden would say, of course. Because he's not addled. He's clumsy with his speech. It's, every single one of us, Jimmy and I have both, I can virtually guarantee it, misspoke at least once tonight. I remember Jimmy corrected himself. And I think there was one point where I misspoke and was going to correct myself, but let it go because we were already off onto another thing. Everybody misspeaks. The concern with Biden is the regularity with which it's happening. And quite frankly, something neither Jimmy nor myself have mentioned, and I haven't looked into enough, and I haven't seen news stations reporting on it, but Jon Stewart mentioned it on Monday. On two separate occasions, he spoke about someone as if they were alive when he already knew months ahead of that the person was dead. There were two different people. Go watch Jon Stewart's clip from The Daily Show on Monday. Two different individuals who had died sometime before, and Biden knew they were dead and had commented on it in some context, and yet spoke about them as if they were alive and as if they were expected to be in an event. Those two things are the most worrying statements. I don't mind if somebody stutters. I don't mind if somebody switches up words. It's obvious he doesn't think Trump's his fucking vice president. So if he accidentally calls his vice president Trump, okay, no big deal. Grandpa stumbled. I don't mind that he has difficulty walking up the steps. Hell, Trump has difficulty walking down a ramp. A 2 or 3 degree ramp is minimal. I do mind if on multiple occasions, he refers to someone as alive that he knows is dead. That's not stuttering, and that's not just confusing your words. That's a memory gap. Now, I'm not here diagnosing. I'm not, oh, what if he's got Parkinson's? Well, if he's got Parkinson's, he's got Parkinson's. We had a president in a wheelchair. I don't think that Parkinson's necessarily disqualifies you from being president, and I don't think screwing up names on occasion does. However, it doesn't instill any confidence.
Yeah.
When you're doing a press conference to specifically instill confidence and that you are not having certain problems, and you demonstrate those very problems multiple times in that press conference, we got a problem. And I still think he can do the job. And if he doesn't drop out, I'm still going to vote for him. And I will be spending his entire second term, if he gets reelected, doing whatever I can to help the Democratic Party get the next president elected. Anyway.
Yep.
Rant number 12 over.
Because in 2028, whoever Trump Jr. runs against, we're going to have to be there to support.
There's a commenter in chat that's got something exactly right, and I'm just going to read it. Trump doubles down when he misspeaks. He regularly referred to Biden as Obama and then says that Obama is really pulling the strings. Yes. Trump, when he messes up, does, and I can't do the voice, Jimmy can do it, but he'll do whatever respin he wants. When he misreads the teleprompter, you can see him go off the prompter, and it'll be the, and obviously it's this, and and it's the best thing ever, and then tell a story in order to distract from the fact that he fucked up.
Listen to my friend here, James Randi, next to me right now, and James Randi, he's got a great point here, but what's that? No, because I call him James Randi because he wishes he was James Randi, and frankly, maybe it was a compliment to him. He wishes, but he's starting to look more and more like James Randi every day. Do you want to see my James Randi impression?
That's exactly.
It's too soon. I was just going to do an impression of a dead guy.
Down.
Yeah.
I miss Randy, and I wish we could have done more events together. And I didn't grow the beard to look like him or Dan Dennett, but I'm happy every time somebody confuses me for either of them.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple more calls left.
One thing you don't have in common, people often confused him for a straight man, and people often confuse you for a gay one. So that's different.
It's kind of similar.
It's different but similar. Yeah, I feel you.
People have
Fox
misassumed.
Fox in Oklahoma.
Hello, my name is Fox.
Hey, Fox.
Yeah. How are you, Fox?
I am a trans woman, and I wanted to ask about your opinion on RFK Jr.
What
He's a
an
lunatic.
idiot. Nuts. But it says here you want to vote for him.
I'm torn between Biden and RFK.
That's bananas.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, first of all,
I'm definitely thinking all the conspiracy theories that he approves are crazy, so I don't think I'm going to vote for him.
What do you like about him?
I mean, he's
The only
opposed
thing I
to
like
trans
about him
women
is
participating in women's sports.
Yeah,
Also
the only
doesn't
thing I like
believe in the
about him is
medical
his
consensus for
environmental
trans
politics.
kids. So to be clear, he has in one area something which he maybe matches Biden on, but in everything else you dislike him. And so rather than go with
I dislike
Biden,
him
who
in everything
also is better on the environment and has more positives, including a stutter and getting old, but none of his brain's been eaten. You're going to go with...
And he's not an anti-vaxxer like RFK is.
Yeah, I can't. I think that's a deal breaker for me, is the anti-vax thing too. Yeah.
Okay. So you're not going to vote for him.
I don't think so.
Also-
I researched him a lot, and I came to the conclusion I'm probably not going to vote for him. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And one of the best reasons not to vote for him, despite the fact that he's an anti-vaxxer, despite the fact that he's bad on trans issues, despite the fact that he promoted hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin as effective treatments and a number of other things, he has no chance of winning, and so a vote for him is essentially saying that you're okay with anybody else winning.
Yeah, it's a wasted vote for sure.
In a primary, this is what I was saying earlier. In primary, absolutely fucking vote your conscience. And if RFK Jr. blows your skirt up, cool, vote for him in a primary. And if enough people do it, then I guess I'll live under the doom and gloom of a worm-addled brain with number of anti-science positions, because I will admit I would take RFK over Trump. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't want to, but I would. But considering
His
he has
wife's
zero
funny.
chance of winning, and is, by the way, if you do nothing else, you can just follow the money. And he's getting more support, more financial support from Republicans than from Democrats.
I definitely think after I researched every candidate, I think it comes down to, what this country needs. And I think Biden is the best for that. I do support him dropping out if he decides to, but if it comes
You
down
do
to
know
just
that
Trump or Biden,
RFK
I'm
would
voting
not.
blue.
If Biden drops, RFK Jr. won't even be considered. You know that, right? Because
Yeah,
that's what your note said.
Yeah.
Biden should drop so RFK can run. If Biden drops, RFK will not be. Not only will he not be the nominee, I doubt he would get more than 3 delegates. If he got 3.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Fox, this was a weird and confusing conversation because it seems like maybe you just wanted to hypothetically put it out there, but not actually stand by it. I don't
know. I think in her case, it was, and not to speak for you, Fox, but we didn't talk about RFK tonight at all. And that there's a good reason for that, because we both talked about RFK before. And I think we both actively despise him. I know that I do, but I can understand why somebody would call in and say, hey, yeah, but what about this? Or, what about Gretchen Whitmer? What about, whoever else? So what about an RFK is not that out of the loop, except that, it would take a catastrophic set of circumstances to get me to vote for RFK Jr.
It'd be tough.
Yeah, it was definitely a hypothetical.
It would be hard to vote for a man who's been on Epstein's jet that many times and has implicitly admitted to sexual assault. But now he's a different man, so he's not going to talk about it. That was his defense.
That's especially weird.
Yeah.
Who do you guys think would replace Biden if he dropped out? Would it be Harris?
Harris. Harris is
Buttigieg?
almost. I would give Harris odds of like 80%. And then if it wasn't Harris, if she even, for all we know, she would go, actually, I don't want to be the president. I'd rather you put somebody other than me. I don't know, but I doubt she would do that. But if it's not Harris, I would say the order of likelihood would be Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, Gretchen Whitmer. I don't know what it would even be after that. A lot of people like to say Michelle Obama because they just don't pay attention. She will not run for president.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, you can count on me for voting blue this November. So
cool. Well, RFK ain't blue. Isn't he the libertarian candidate this time? Did he get that nomination?
I think he was still independent, but I don't
He's,
know if libertarians promote him or not.
I'm not voting for RFK, so that's my final decision. So
cool. Glad to hear it. All right. Well, thank you, Fox.
You guys have a good night. I just wanted to have a hypothetical, though. So
all good. Cool. I am Ed.
Have a good night.
All right. We got one call left.
Go for it. I'm down.
All right. Pete in Arizona, pronouns are he, him. Pete gets to be the final call of this because I wanna. And the reason you're the final call is because I want to go hang out with Arden. So we're not taking.
I'm honored to be the last call.
Go for it.
Well, I disagree with you guys. Starting out the line this evening, I was probably 80% Biden shouldn't drop out, but after hearing all these arguments, I think it might be down to like 60, 65. But
Wow.
he's in the beginning when he ran last time in the primary, he was literally my last choice. Maybe Bloomberg might have been a little lower, but he was my last choice. Did not like him. Thought he was too old then. I just didn't think he was good. And he won, and I think he did a great job. He surprised me. He's been one of the most productive presidents in modern times. One of the biggest evidence that he can do the job is that he's doing the job, and he's doing a good job. He was old and feeble his entire time in office.
Just to help with succinctness, I need you to make sure that you remember that earlier in the show, I don't know if we addressed it in this one, but I know we have in the past. Neither of us disagree that he's been the most progressive president of either of our lifetime. I think I can even speak for Matt in that. As far as in policy goes, either of our lifetime, he's been the most progressive president. He has been an extremely effective president. There are things about the last 4 years that are very good. I don't agree with everything that are very good. We are not making a case on whether or not he was a good president or whether or not he would be better than Trump. I agree with the premise of him being a good president, despite deviating somewhat from that opinion. And I agree that he would be better than Trump.
Well, I think that is one piece of evidence that he has a chance to win re-election, is he has been a good president and is continuing to be a good president right now. And
it's not about if he has a chance. It's whether or not he has a good enough chance to encourage him to stay in, or if we have a better chance and that the risk of changing outweighs the reward.
I have a question.
And I don't think, yeah.
Does the fact that my heart is currently working mean that it's going to continue to work?
It doesn't indicate that it's not going to stop. That's the opposite either. It's probably.
That's not what I asked. How dare you try to flip this to a fallacious inversion? I'm trying to point out the fallacy that you did, and you took my question, and in order to protect your fallacious line of reasoning from being exposed, flipped it. You said the evidence that he can do the job is that he's doing the job, but that doesn't mean anything. The evidence that he won doesn't mean that he can win again. The fact that he's done a good job up until today doesn't mean that he won't stop doing a good job tomorrow. And it doesn't mean that people don't have a reasonable suspicion about seeing patterns in his behavior that are worth suspecting that maybe he's not going to do the job as well. I'm fine with the job that he's done. I think he would do the job again, but you don't get to say the proof that he can do the job is that he's been doing it, because that's just a fallacy. Because right up until my heart fucking stopped and I had to go have a triple bypass, the argument would have held for my heart.
I guess what I was trying to say is that he has a record to run on. And so I see your point that you're right. It's not that he can continue. And also, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that's a feeble old man. I thought of that of him the entire time. That changed a little bit after the State of the Union. I thought, wow, he is a little more awake and with it than I had thought he had been in the past. But that was just one speech, and he kind of has gone back to the way he's been the last, I'd say 3.5 years, and that's the way he's been. I also think that
remember too that even closer. I was just say, even closer to that State of the Union speech, when George Clooney wrote his thing, the thing he says in there was, I met him 3 months ago, and he was the Biden of the debate, not of the State of the Union. So truly, it sounds like the State of the Union was even more of a one-off than if they were right, if their conspiracies were right, they need to give them those drugs again.
So one of the things about past performance is not sufficient to predict future behavior, but sometimes it's the best we have. But the other thing you have to look at is, do you think that Biden's best days are behind him and that he's going to have more and more bad days, and that what are the frequency of those bad days and how impactful might they be? That's a legitimate thing to ask.
I think that's all.
Because if in 4 years we decide that we want to throw the Constitution out, in 4 years, would it be fair to say, hey, he did the job for 8 years, we have no reason to think he won't be able to do it for 12? And after 12 years, will we be able to say that he's done it for 12 years and there's no reason to think he wouldn't do it after 16? At some point, we're wheeling out a corpse.
Yeah. And realistically,
I just-
thinking about how much he has aged in the last 4 years, I think it's wild that so many people are assessing this on simply, do I think he could make it to November? When in reality, it's not just about November. It's about January 20th, 2029 also. Now, if I thought that was the day that he'd be up and fine and he'll only be dead for 3 days or really too much, but we're talking about right now, the election's 4 months away, and whoever is the president, did I get that number right? Yeah, 4 months away, and whoever is the president will be a president 1 year from today, and 2 years from today, and 3 years from today. You know how this works. And I don't have confidence in him to make it well to the 1 year from today. Nor do most people.
There's also no evidence that anybody else would do any better. I think maybe there might have been one poll that showed
Yes, there is.
Kamala doing a little better. But also
yes, there is. You can make a historic case based on approval numbers, and you can make a cumulative case based on recent polling. And the fact of the matter is those approval numbers, her approval numbers, don't actually matter as much until she becomes the nominee. It literally changes things. But you could definitely make a present and historical case for either. And by going away from necessarily the individual, making a case for what attitudes toward having one of the two of them again is for the country in general, and how much enthusiasm there would be just for a real option that isn't Biden or Trump. It's basically the third party people's wet dream. You're finally going to get a candidate different than the two people the parties picked initially.
I want to give Pete a chance. So, Pete, what were you saying?
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
I was just going to say that talking about historically, I know you talked about this a lot with the last couple of callers about incumbency, but I think it's not as strong as it has been in the past. But historically, incumbents have had an advantage. I know Trump lost as an incumbent, and with George Herbert Walker lost as an incumbent. But most of the time, incumbents win in presidency, Senate, and Congress, and there is an advantage with incumbency. Now, Trump you could argue, was the incumbent in the primary, but he's not the incumbent now in the general election. He still
No, you can't argue the second thing you just did. You cannot argue the second thing you just did. You can't say that Trump gets to inherit incumbency in 2024 for the primary, but he doesn't get to inherit it for the general election. This is my point from the onset. There is not a good reason to believe he does not hold a similar or stronger incumbent advantage.
Because he has the MAGA Republicans, in control. He's in control of them. And so
yes, he built up the power as president.
DeSantis, because they weren't real Trumps, right? So for them, it is incumbency. He's their incumbent leader. But for the rest of the country,
and for voters, it is incumbency. He's their incumbent leader.
See, there's no evidence for that either, because that's not true.
Yes, there is. Yes, there absolutely is. One, that he won his primary, and two, polling on enthusiasm, polling on demographic shift, polling on specific questions. Polling on specific questions like, who do you trust more with the economy? Who do you trust more with the Russia war? Who do you trust more with the Israel war? Who do you think is a bigger threat to democracy? When you ask these individuals, you're saying there's zero evidence for it, and there's actually lots of evidence for it.
I'm saying he's literally not the incumbent, and he could. I just don't think that. I mean,
and I already said that incumbent advantage does not have to go to the literal incumbent.
Yeah, there's a difference between he is the incumbent and he
has
the. Wow, I wasn't fucking talking at all.
I was just saying I think it's diminished. I agree that
do you think he gets to wear a special cape at the debates because he's the incumbent and everybody gets to identify which one? Or do you think that everybody understands these two are one-term so far presidents running against each other with their own records? And with the last 4 years, you have the possibility of fatigue for one. And in fact, Trump is getting the advantage of having Trump almost won in 2020. Right? The actual margin of electoral college votes that he lost by isn't near as high as the difference in population. And it was an actual close race. In fact, as I recall, Matt and I went to bed that night thinking it was looking like Trump was going to end up winning and then didn't. I'm very glad we were wrong. But I know that was at least my feeling, that we were both feeling like shit by the end of it all.
Yep.
And now he's been able to also rewrite some of that record.
But Biden won by a larger margin than Trump won over Hillary, and the demographics are getting worse.
Incorrect.
For Republicans, not better.
I believe the Electoral College score was identical to Trump
people
versus Hillary. Am I wrong on that?
I'm talking about general. I think Biden. I don't remember that. Biden won by a bigger general vote by a much larger amount.
Right. So to say Hillary also won the popular vote. So what you just said as your defense of what you just said prior doesn't make any sense. They had the same number of Electoral College votes.
5 million plus.
He's saying Biden won more of the popular vote.
He did have a couple. He got Georgia.
Than Hillary?
And electoral.
Yes, in 2020, he won a larger... No, he did not win. You just said, and electoral. No, unless I'm wrong. I'll double check. I believe it's identical, that the numbers that the margin between Hillary and Trump was the same as Biden-Hillary. Because I remember making that point when it happened, that it's actually kind of funny that it was the same. Maybe I'm wrong and the margin is wrong, but I don't think I am. I'll look that up here in a minute. Pete, you are making terrible arguments that the incumbent advantage is what matters. You have two people who are historically unpopular. If they were running against a non-incumbent, the other person would almost certainly win, because you do not usually win at this low level of approval ratings for either of them.
Biden got 2 more electoral votes over Trump than Trump got over Hillary. Biden had 306.
Got it. So the margin was 2.
Trump had 304.
Okay, fair enough. So I was wrong by 2 Electoral College votes. That is not a significant showing. And again, we're talking about 4 years ago at the end of a pandemic. No, actually in the middle of a pandemic, where Trump was flubbing shit over and over again. And the enthusiasm for we need a change wasn't even just directed at Trump, but just the state of things. Now we are here 4 years later, and the polling that Trump recently had the largest polling advantage over Biden or Hillary when he won. So as far as polling goes, his margin, the margin of difference, was larger than it's ever been. Meaning that there is now, because again, these are the polls that don't necessarily mean the Electoral College is going to go that way, but often do reflect the popular vote, at least within the margin of error. And that poll would have suggested if the election was held on that day, Trump would have won the popular vote.
And more recent polls?
Yes.
Now? I may have lost your train.
Yes.
Because polls now aren't predictive of the election, not until like October to get.
No shit. We already addressed that. In fact, I mentioned at the beginning why it's a dumb thing to say. We did. Polls the day before the election don't tell you what the election will do, because people react to the polls.
Yes. My last argument left would be...
But it doesn't mean they don't matter, Pete.
Professor Lichtman, his model goes back to George Washington. He did it retroactively, and it's been accurate 100%. And he still has it with Harris winning, but anybody else, it's unknown or Trump winning.
Yeah, it's mostly unknown. Professor Lichtman's doesn't account for what has happened.
No.
What is happening.
His model is accurate in retroactively, going all the way back to the beginning. And since he's been doing it live himself, since when was that, like the 80s or something?
Great. There are octopus who have done it too. What I'm telling you is, while his model is better than an octopus, this is a novel moment.
I think every presidential election could be somewhat novel. Maybe I'm down to 55%. I don't know. But.
By the way you're wording it is suggesting that the model existed in all elections have been correct. But first of all, he's only predicted 10, and it was not correct 100% of the time. he was wrong about Al Gore versus Bush, and his defense was that Al Gore had the election stolen from him.
That's kind of true.
We don't know
then
if
he
that's
applied
true or
his
not.
model- he applied it retroactively,
And
it was, he claims it's 100% accurate.
he was able to
convincing to me
create a
when I
model
first-
based on the past and then This is
No,
a
he
very
did it
silly.
forward.
This is a
And he
very
was-
silly thing.
No, that's not what I'm saying. He did it forward, and then after he predicted his how many in a row, he applied it retroactively. And it
You
would've-
don't think
looking
he
at who
used the
would've won-
previous elections to build the model? You think he came up with the model as a novel model without literally what you're describing is he created a model based on history and then it worked when applied to history also.
I don't know how he created the models, honestly.
It was based on history. Of course it was. How are you going to be here and defend Lichtman's model? You're clearly, fuck, dude, this is as good as defending the fucking octopus. Go support the octopus. You don't know how either of them, the octopus or Lichtman, made this shit.
I read an article and saw him on CNN. That's why I left it to the end. But it sounded convincing. Maybe I'm done 50%. Maybe I'm at 50-50. I don't know. We just got to defeat Trump, that's for sure.
I just need you to have one good reason to change my percentage, because so far not one.
You guys are like the best debaters
And I'm
in North America.
Well, one of us
And
is.
let me
No,
think.
that's.
I
Oh,
got
thank you,
one
Matt.
more. I
That's
got
sweet
any
to say.
You're welcome. So I want
that's all I got.
Cool.
That's one.
Thanks, Pete.
I'm down to 50-50. Thanks,
All right,
Matt.
see
You're
you,
great.
Pete.
You're the reason I'm atheist.
I'll do
Nope,
what I
you
can.
are.
All right. So
You helped, but you're the reason you're atheist. I just like to correct people when they say that shit.
yes. Now, Trump tweeted this out 3 or 4 hours ago. You want to read it in Trump voice?
Crooked Joe Biden. Hang on. Crooked Joe Biden begins with big boy press conference with, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, though I think she was not qualified to be president. Great job, Joe.
So first of all, Trump's misquoted Biden right there, but largely correct. The nice thing is that Joe Biden took this, or whoever's running Joe's account, took this screenshot and posted the following. By the way, yes, I know the difference. One's a prosecutor and the other's a felon. Whoever's posting this, even if it's Joe, good job.
Yeah.
Why the fuck don't we get that stuff more often? Why do we get, it's not going to happen.
It's one of those ones that I feel, maybe this is we've talked about types of pedantry we both share. I actually don't love when people just say, in short summary, is a felon. Is a felon for trying to overturn or influence the election. That I'm fine with. But
Fair.
when they just say, who would you rather have? A politician or a felon? There are many felons I would rather have. And in America, that shouldn't be what disqualifies you. But anyway, I digress. My pedantry.
Apart from that tweet, I pulled up data on the 2016 and 2020 elections. If you look at it, 2016 election had 60% turnout. There were basically 127 million votes. And Hillary won the popular vote by almost 3 million votes. But Trump won the Electoral College. Now, back then, we were talking about how we need to completely revamp and get rid of the Electoral College and all this. That's not going to happen anytime soon. And it's just a reality that we're going to have to deal with that. Fast forward to 2020. After people saw what had happened, turnout for the election went up 6.5%. And both of them managed to get more votes than either Trump or Hillary in 2016. This points out why you can't look at the raw vote or the popular vote and glean much from it. Because Trump in 2016 got 62,000 votes and won despite losing the popular vote. And then in 2020, he got 74 million votes and lost the popular vote and the electoral college vote. You have to get people to vote, and you have to come up with a way to inspire people to vote. I think right now, while we're all going along with the, hey, let's highlight Project 2025 and the people behind him, it doesn't matter that Trump lies about Project 2025. He absolutely lied. I don't know what Project 2025, but there's some stuff there that's good and some stuff there that's bad, and I wish him luck. If you look at who the people are who are responsible for 2025, it is a laundry, it is a list of people who are part of the Trump administration and Trump's advisors and everybody
140 of them
who was working behind the scenes to dictate to Trump who to put on the Supreme Court. The Heritage Foundation and those people who did Project 2025 are the same people who put together lists of justices determining who's going to be on the Supreme Court. Now, right now, we have soft confirmation that my guest on the Hang Up on Wednesday will be Andrew Seidel. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching me and Jimmy live tonight on Because I Want. I'm going to let Jimmy wrap up here in a minute. But as much as Jimmy knows about this, which is more than I do, everybody's been waiting for Andrew to come back and answer a bunch of questions. And next week, we need to address what needs to happen in the elections, what needs to happen in the Democratic Party, what needs to happen in the House and Senate, what needs to happen to potentially save the nation, democracy, and the Supreme Court, what to do about the Supreme Court's decision on Chevron, what to do about the Supreme Court throwing out precedent. There's so much to cover. And as I mentioned the other day, Andrew's one of one of my favorite people, one of the greatest minds. I just love the guy. But there were a few times over the past 6 or 8 years where Andrew would say something and I'd be like, ooh, I think you might have gone just a little bit too far there. I mean, I'm with you on all this, but I think the doom and gloom that you're talking about, I think you might have gone a bit too far in the doom and gloom. He didn't.
Yeah.
He absolutely didn't. I wake up every day going, how is it that half of the world is exactly wrong about the actual factual state of the world? How is it that half of the world, or at least the United States, seems to be willing to support this absolutely bizarro individual? And I get it. I've got another friend, well, we'll say acquaintance of mine, DJ. Huge thank you to DJ, because he posts statistics and stuff all the time on what's going on and tries to combat the narrative. And I'm grabbing statistics from him and other people as well. So good job. But when I look at the world, well, something DJ posted recently is that despite the fact that America's literacy rates are generally probably pretty good, the number of people who have, or the percentage of people in the general public who have a better than second grade level of reading comprehension at being able to not just read and know the letters and the words, but discern meaning from what is said, staggeringly low. I wiped my phone of pictures, so I don't have that statistic handy because I'm getting ready to swap my phone and I didn't want to lose it. It's on my computer somewhere. We have failed to educate. We have built a world where you have more access to more information than ever before, and the world is seemingly less equipped to handle that much information than it needs to be, and perhaps than it used to be. We have access to more and better information, and we don't seem to be able to tell the difference between good information and bad information, and we don't seem to be able to know what to do with it. It is an incredibly frustrating state of affairs to wake up in, this is only a mild bit of hyperbole, This is like waking up in Bizarro World. This is like waking up in some alternate reality where I'm an atheist, but I used to hang out with the rest of my family when I was a believer, all of my friends. I know how those people think. I know how those people thought. Genuinely nobody from my family or church from the past is the same as they were. They've bought into a cult of personality. They've bought into a fear-mongering about the woke left and what they're going to do. They're so absolutely worried about who's peeing in the stall next to them and whether or not somebody in there has a penis who shouldn't, when it's none of their fucking business, that they will vote against their own best interest. They will deny the facts about the economy. They will deny the fact that manufacturing jobs are at a 15-year high right now. Manufacturing employment is higher today than it ever was under Trump and higher than it's been in 15 years. That's just yet one more statistic that I'm throwing out that I've been grabbing from DJ and others. And we're stuck. I don't know what the solution is, but I know it's not going to happen. As much as I want to give up on a regular basis, I won't. And I won't let Jimmy give up. And Jimmy won't let me give up. And together, we're not going to let anybody else give up. And if it turns out that our worst suspicions are correct and Trump actually wins, I'm not moving to Canada or somewhere else right off the bat. I'm going to work to fix this. Because honestly, I think there's a significant portion of the American population who, as somebody told me the other day, they're like, I want Trump to win just to get it over with. Let's ride out the 4 years and there's nobody like Trump. We'll never get stuck with anybody like this again. And so let's ride it out. It can't be that bad. I don't know how you can say that after the Supreme Court basically just granted immunity for all official acts and no good way to tell what is an official act and what's not. How do you even begin to impeach a president if official acts aren't able to be used as evidence against them in any crime? Now, as I pointed out, and this is the last point I'm going to make on this, the Supreme Court's decision doesn't make the president a king or a god. It comes really fucking close. And they've done a terrible job of listing how we should go about determining what's an official act and what's not, and what's an illegal order and what is a legal order and what's an illegal order. But the ruling only applies, and we'll talk to Andrew about this because it's possible I'm wrong, but the ruling only applies as to what someone can be charged with as a crime. It doesn't say anything at all about what we can impeach or remove from office. But the problem is, how do you impeach someone? How do you remove someone from office if they have control of the military, if they can kill without any threat of being held criminally responsible? Basically, you're saying, well, we can't ever charge you with a crime for killing your political opponents, but we can, remove you from office and make you go live somewhere else. But if the Project 2025 comes to fruition and they replace massive portions of the government with loyalists, what hope do any of us have of doing anything? It's not a stretch to say that civil war is highly likely under a situation like that. And yet still, I don't give up. So thanks to Jimmy and everybody else for hanging out with me. And I will let you wrap all this up with your thoughts because I have no more thoughts.
Check Facebook Messenger, by the way, because there's one question. But I have two thoughts that I want to jump on, at least as my final thoughts. And that's one, there are going to be people who, I guess I'm going to ask a favor. Everybody set your alarms for tomorrow to come back to this video and check the comments. Because last time Forrest and I did it, I got a bunch of comments that were like, what you guys are missing is blank. And then they would say things I wasn't missing. And tonight, I would argue that we also got a bunch of calls that were saying, what you guys are missing is blank. And almost everybody found out whatever they thought we were missing, we weren't. ended up kind of agreeing, even if they didn't change their mind, except for Gina. Now, so if that happens, go check the comments and just tell people to call in. Just encourage them. Hey, guys, so-and-so's on this week. Wednesday, Matt's doing the Hang Up with Andrew. Call in and tell them what he's missing. Because I'm so tired of these like backseat quarterbacks, to combine two metaphors together, backseat quarterbacks who are positive they know what we're missing, when in fact, I've yet to see anything listed I missed. Maybe we didn't talk about it, but it doesn't mean it wasn't a part of the consideration. And the second thing I have for Gina and for the last caller, I've looked up, I already knew about Lichtman and his keys. Okay, and so just because I have clearance, we aren't going to end in just a moment. We're actually going to end after Super Chats. So you can still get Super Chats in now if you want to get them in. We've got a few to run through, and then we'll go after that. But to Gina and to the last caller, why are you so confident and so ready to back Biden on the fact that you think because Alan, is his name Alan? What's his first name? His name is, yes, Alan Lichtman's 13 keys. And I've been hearing about the 13 keys for years and years. You're so ready on the basis of the keys to say that means Biden's going to win. When do you know who isn't ready to do that? Alan Lichtman. Because I just looked it up. And in fact, he is not ready to predict Biden will run and will win. And one of the reasons is because of the 13 keys, of which you need 8. So if you lose 5, the other person wins. Of the 13 keys, wait, or is it the other way? 13 keys are simple. If 8 or more of the 13 keys are true for the incumbent party specifically, will win. But if fewer than 8, so you, as the incumbent, can only lose 5. Right now, he says Trump already has 2 and Biden has 4 shaky ones. So if he is the incumbent and gets the incumbent advantage. But you know what's funny is one of the 2 keys that he says that Biden has lost, 2 of the keys have to do with incumbencies, and he gave one of them to Trump, but not Biden. And it is that you are incumbent is one key, and that you are a charismatic incumbent, that you are either a charismatic or a national hero. And that one went to Trump. So one of the 2 incumbent advantages, the guy you're citing as saying he's predicted it and has predicted Biden, 1, he hasn't predicted Biden, and 2, the staple advantage that you anchored to, Gina, he gave one of the 2 keys to Trump. And I would still argue, whether Alan Lichtman agrees or not, that Alan Lichtman cannot actually demonstrate that his incumbency key should only go to the literal sitting president if they're running against a previous president. But that's my thing. So that's my 2 things. Don't leave a comment of what we're missing if you're not willing to call in and find out if we're actually missing it or not. And if you come up with something that I legitimately hadn't considered, I will tell you. But fucking watch your ass. Get the log out of your eye before the splinter in mine, to quote Christ. Anyway, Larry Fishman says the fact that the best people under 40 can hope for after the election is that their lot in life will keep getting worse at about the same rate is appalling. The problem isn't a lack of enthusiasm, but a complete lack of hope for this election. But I think that the point is that if we were to do, even if it's Biden, if we reelected Biden, we will potentially have changes in the Supreme Court and other laws changed that a future more progressive and potentially revolutionary candidate can actually work with. But at the moment, we don't really have that.
$10 from Grandmaster Kupo. I'm going to tell my kids this was Dave the Gnome and Al Borland. Seriously, I love you guys. Thank you for all you do. I have no idea who either of those are, and that's probably not going to come as a surprise to most people. But thanks.
Is Al Borland the guy from Home Improvement? Because somebody told me I looked like him recently.
I think if Al Borland was on Home Improvement, I would be closer to recognizing the name.
The sidekick of Tim the Toolman Taylor, I think, might have been him. Let me double check. Yep, that's him. The sidekick, the bullet hose guy.
Oh, it's the
In
character
fact,
name?
I wouldn't be. Yeah.
Is Dave the Gnome part of that as well?
I have no idea who Dave the Gnome is, but I imagine that was my friend who actually said it. It may have actually been my friend Elder. Dave the Gnome is a gnome of the forest. Like around.
Oh, this is just a Matt has a gnome-like beard thing. Yeah, it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I help people improve their homes. Skeptoides says, I'm going to vote for whoever is against Trump this election cycle is because our choices are or fascism. I'd vote for a soiled mop over Trump. Yeah, me too.
I'd soil the mop and vote for it. $5 from Sheridan Bernasconi.
And I know where it's been.
What?
I was trying to build on you. I was trying to yes and your joke. It's all good.
I just couldn't hear it. A friend recently blamed Jill for Joe staying in the race. I'm pleased with his performance and believe Trump is shitting his pants. Polls don't vote. It's true. Polls don't vote. I don't believe that Trump is shitting his pants, even if it's virtually certain that he's going to lose, because I don't think he's sufficiently tied to reality to panic about that. The dude sat in court and was convicted of 34 felonies and did not seem to be shitting his pants.
Except maybe literally. There was a rumor that he actually literally shit his pants once in court. That people could smell it. Yeah. I don't think we should hurt. Everybody's going to shit their pants eventually. We should leave that one alone.
I shit my pants at an atheist convention. Matter of fact, the very first atheist convention thing that Arden and I went to together, I had been sick. They'd been adjusting my medications. We got there. We got to the hotel. We checked in. I left her in the hotel room and said, I'm going to go down and say hey to some people. The hotel had this terrible thing where you had to, it's almost as bad as the Excalibur or the pyramid one in Vegas. But anyway, you had to walk out and walk all the way around. I got all the way around to the elevator, shit my pants, and turned around and walked all the way back to the hotel. Just absolutely panicked and everything else. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's the medication and it messed with me, but I was in there. She had to calm me down because I was having a panic attack because I shit my pants. And it was mostly, it wasn't, oh crap, I shit my pants, there's something, horribly wrong with me. It's, when are they going to get my meds right so this doesn't happen? And how the hell am I going to go down and interact with all these people at this convention when I don't even have clean pants right now? So yeah, it's going to happen to everybody. Maybe.
So stop being shitty about it, people.
Yeah.
That was poorly chosen.
$5 from Skeptoides. Is this you?
I was going to say, I took this stand years ago when people were shitting on Caitlyn Bennett for it. Of all the things you need to shit on Caitlyn Bennett for, why would you pick that she shat her pants on a party once?
I don't even know who that is. The DNC is like a boat with a small hole. It can be fixed, but we need to get it to the shore first. The RNC is like a wildfire, everything in flames. Yeah.
Yeah. I more on that. I don't know. I wish we could get past the RNC so we actually could address how bad the DNC is. But of the two, the RNC is much, much worse. Danny Smith says, Trump is such an existential threat. The DNC will do anything to stop him except allow us to have a fair primary or allow a leftist to win.
Well, I think you make part of a good point there. But I'm exhausted from the bullshit. Who's a true leftist and who's a true not, like it matters, or as if the thing that you're pointing to as a leftist is genuinely better. It may be, but I don't see the case being made. And I'm far less concerned about how left the person is, as opposed to whether or not they can get elected and vote. One thing that people don't realize is that, like I say, Bernie's not a Democrat. He's not. He can run as one, but the DNC is not beholden to him at all. And they're also not beholden in particular to the left. And there's compromise that needs to be there, because how I was bitching at the people who were like, if they wanted my vote, they should have made sure that my candidate didn't get railroaded out of there. All that means is that your values aren't in tune with the bulk of the majority that is on your side. Happens to all of us, happens to me all the time, happens to Jimmy even more than me, I'm sure. Oh, this fucking mic stand. I still don't. All right, hopefully it holds up. Anyway, yes, I've lost my train of thought.
It's okay. I don't know what the phrase even means to have a fair primary, because the DNC is not an open group, right? You can't, if you made it truly open, then I guess a Republican could win. So the DNC is going to represent the DNC. And if we're talking about the world stage, the DNC is not a left-wing organization. Only in the American stage is it a left-wing. It's still fundamentally capitalist, and it is still fundamentally wanting to serve the interests of the DNC. So to say to allow a leftist to win would, it's kind of like be so open-minded your brain falls out. I want to reform this and change this, but I don't want to reform this and change this and maintain a DNC. So it seems like you're almost saying two contradictory things, but that's all I have to say. Go ahead to the next one.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. The DNC is not going to let a non-Democrat win. This is what I hear all the time is if people are like, oh, the DNC didn't want Bernie to win. Of course not. He's not a fucking Democrat. I love the guy. 1%. The top 1% of the DNC, but.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Skeptic Dank says Project 2025 outlawing porn becomes much more concerning when you consider how many people are classifying all LGBT content as pornographic. Also, the way that people are acting like there's no, this couldn't happen, it couldn't happen, when it's literally like, you do realize some states have already started. Yes. Is it unlikely that in 4 years you're going to go to prison for making porn? I don't know, probably unlikely, but I'm just going to do this. Actually, hang on. Let me do something. I want to make this point, and I might even zoom in on my phone to make the point. Let me just
There's a lot of things in Project 2025 that are ridiculous and will never happen. Never happen. Even because they can't agree amongst themselves. Even if a right-wing Christian fundamentalist came in and said, we're going to implement everything in Project 2025, not everything would go there. And that's not the purpose of it. Some of it is there so that they can tell their base, we're working towards this goal. We may not get there, but we'll make progress. And so, we haven't been able to outlaw porn, but we've really limited it. And we view any discussion about gender as similarly problematic. So we would have to shut down TACIS if Project 2025 becomes a real thing. You know how zoomed in you are right now?
I'm meaning to be. I'm going to do something that no creator on YouTube has ever been willing to do. And I am going to live on air launch Pornhub.com and watch what... I can't. This is what I get when I type in Pornhub.com, because foundationally, making porn illegal has already begun. And in Texas, if you have a Texas IP address, for the record, I did test that before I tried it to make sure I didn't accidentally have a VPN on. But if you have a Texas IP address, okay, I'm fucking this camera up more as I'm trying to get back to where I was. You actually cannot go to Pornhub.com. Because Pornhub does not have a way to tie your literal identity to your account, and won't do that, because then that could be subpoenaed and they could try and bastardize you with whatever your kinks are, because basically Pornhub isn't willing to make you use a driver's license or equivalent to sign in. You have to do something that Texas considers good enough age verification. So there isn't a middle ground that is sufficient. So Pornhub, you cannot access in Texas. So it's already begun to the people who were like, they're not going to go after that, would violate my freedoms. Well, I can't watch big titty goth GFs right now. They were fine violating that. I want that to be one of the iconic moments for the channel, the time Jimmy opened up Pornhub on air and didn't get canceled.
I think it's likely to be that iconic.
I know. Yeah, I know.
But I like the effort. And there's evidently other sites you can't get to as well. And yet there are some that you can. So they're not able to shut down everything. And I don't even have a VPN running. But $5 from Joshua Everett. I think we're all afraid for ourselves and our loved ones, not afraid of ourselves. We could be. I don't think we'd survive Trump 2.0 intact. We're all coming at this because we fear Trump. I don't fear Trump nearly as much as I fear his acolytes and worshipers and cult members. Just like I don't fear God at all, but some of God's fans are terrifying.
Yeah, Trump's in a 1-on-1. I could take him. I could out golf Trump.
I could run down a ramp faster than Trump.
Hell yeah. Julie Mack, love you, Jimmy and Matt. I appreciate all the work you do especially with politics. You make a real difference. Great show. Thank you.
I hope so. Somebody came in and did the standard thing earlier. I saw it in chat, and it was like, I really love Matt and Jimmy when they're talking about religion, but not so much politics. That's because your politics are shitty. You should have called in to tell us why we were wrong. And it's 90% transphobes when that happens. $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. A pessimist is someone who thinks things can't be worse, and an optimist knows they can. And while I want Biden to step down badly, it could be worse. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, Monkey. Except I don't necessarily want him to step down badly. I'm leaning towards that's the correct decision right now, like maybe 75%. But I don't know that I have good data or anything else where I can actually address it. Sorry, I got.
Arden and I like to fuck with him by sending messages to each other that set off his phone. Adam Schrodron. Adam Schrodron says, "Great show, Jimmy. Great beard, Matt." I want the.
I literally just said you
the best shot. What's the difference?
It's too late. I can't turn off notifications because this thing has my blood sugar monitor on it and I need the fucking alarm to go off. So I can't just kill all notifications. And I don't want to turn off notifications from Arden and Jimmy during the show because this is how they got a message with me. And now they're just doing it to hear the beep them. This is my life. These two just fuck with me and distract me while I'm trying to think about important stuff like how do we fix the world?
In fairness, I didn't write the buzz message. Anyway, great beard, Matt. Biden is the best shot. What's the difference between him losing and a new person losing?
I think the biggest difference is that if there'll be constant discussions about, would Biden have won? And so the biggest difference is if you let him run, you get your answer. If you change horses midstream, you don't get your answer about that old horse. And one of my biggest issues, I have a real problem with a lack of closure. If Biden has anything near my capacity to be irritated at a lack of closure, not being allowed to run may not be about legacy at all, but it could drive him nuts.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm fine with him also he gets to be on every stage, gets to be side by side with whoever the new nominee is, showing that it truly is a continuation of his legacy or what. I'd be fine with trying to account for that as much as possible, but I know it still wouldn't completely. Monkey at a Typewriter says, my thing isn't that Biden didn't have an answer. How did his staff not see that question coming? They fucking dropped the ball prepping that answer.
Which answer?
Which question are we talking about now?
Yeah. If you want to put it in chat, maybe Arden or I can catch it, or Jimmy, because I'm running the super chats right now. So, but I don't know which question that was. $10 from William Mattis. Everyone should get off Matt and Arden's lawn and go vote. He's old. He needs his nap. LOL, JK, love to go all. Thanks for doing what y'all do. Jimmy, go fuck yourself. Matt, you're gay, homie. Actually, we could all use a nap. Bye. I hear you. I'm in favor of napping.
There's a funny thing that's happened when I'm in these VR rooms. People will come in and recognize me, but because we're not on YouTube, they'll go, "Oh, Jimmy, hey, go fuck yourself." And in big screen, that can be a mean person or a nice person. And so I always have to just wait a second to figure out which one it is. Thank you, Static Vortex.
$5 from SNDN. As someone raised Republican turned Democrat, I'm especially sour at all the people that told me I was giving my vote to Trump for not voting for Biden. Wait. As someone raised Republican turned Democrat, okay, I'm especially sour at all the people that told me I was giving my vote to Trump for not voting for Biden. As it stands right now, either Trump or Biden will be elected. And if you don't vote for Biden, you're saying you're okay with Trump. You're not necessarily giving Trump a vote, but you're saying you're fine with the worst option. And if it irritates you that people are calling you out on it, maybe spend some time thinking about it and vote and support blue.
Especially if you're in a swing state. I think even if you're not, you should, because they actually do something with that data to see, sort of gauge how much potential they have in those places and what they need to, how to allocate resources to build a group of people. You should still vote, even in the swing state. But
Josie talked about that on a
important.
recent TACIS with Lex. But yes, there's lots of reason to vote. Somebody asked me the other day, look, I'm in a completely red state. Why should I vote? And I was like, yeah, number one, because there's other things on the ballot other than just who gets elected. There are measures and things like that. But also, your vote, if you don't vote, and so we know there's 1,000 people in your district and 400 of them didn't vote. We have no idea what those 400 people care about, what they would have voted, or what might have changed their mind or made them vote. But if they go vote, and we see that in this district, we're getting 900 out of 1,000 people are actually voting, that lets us know how close we are to potentially tipping a district, which lets us know how much money needs to be spent there and how best to allocate it. Because despite what people think, the DNC and the RNC aren't idiots who are in a conspiracy to control everything. All they want is power, and they are going to employ and make use of the best data that they can to make decisions to maintain that. If you want to talk about, corruption or this or that, the mere fact that they care about winning means they're going to be working with the best data they can get. And if they look at a district and they say, hey, nobody's voted blue in this district for 20 years, it would be stupid of them to spend money there.
Yeah. That's how Brexit happened, them getting really, really great data from social media in a way that hadn't been used before, and arguably that's what helped Trump win as well.
Monkey at Typewriter said the question that they mentioned earlier was the question about Biden being a bridge president for the younger generation.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Biden. Monkey at a Typewriter out said, half the time when Trump misspeaks, he tries to convince people that the wrong thing he said was right or that his jabbering is real words. Fuck us.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got a problem with that, go Fefe.
$9.99 from Justin Williams. Do you honestly see Trump ceding power in 4 years if he wins, with SCOTUS out of their minds and the economy potentially on very thin ice? The economy's not on very thin ice. It's the perfect recipe for a fascist dictatorship. I don't know. I'd like to think that everything you just said is bizarrely wrong and virtually impossible. And yet the world I live in suggests that it's not all as absurd as it might feel.
I don't expect him to run again in 4 years and somehow try to overturn the third, because he couldn't do the third term thing. If you're talking about trying to come up with some reason to delay elections or declare martial law, I don't think he's above anything, and certainly none of that stuff. But I think he is more likely to then enjoy for whatever life he has left, because fucking cholesterol's not doing the job. Whatever life he has left will probably actually enjoy from then being a kingmaker and basically going, I won 3 times I won. And now I'm going to give you my least terrible son in my eyes. They're all pretty awful though. Trump Jr. I think is
Barron.
going to start running.
I got nothing against Barron.
I don't
Other than
know
he's-
much enough about Barron yet.
He just graduated and he's incredibly tall. He looks like he's like 6'6", 6'7", something like that. But I don't know anything about him, so I don't get to, the other ones are dumpster fires. But
Yeah,
also
Eric's
Jimmy
gonna
Carr
run.
had a really Jimmy Carr's take on this was that, you've got Trump and Biden running, and somebody was asking him who he's going to vote for, and he's like, prostate cancer.
To our metaphor earlier, he's literally going to pick a cancer. I'm just kidding says, I will be attending my first protest tomorrow for Palestine. Super hyped. Go Jimmy yourself, Jimmy. And you're gay, homie, Matt. Very cool.
Word. $5 from Mally Osiris. The Supreme Court decision has given Biden the power to do anything legal or illegal to stop monarchy. Not necessarily. If he does it, he's legend. If not, enemy. I disagree. I get the point, and I wish I could just say, yep. First of all, it doesn't give him the power to do anything. It just means that he can't necessarily be prosecuted for it. That doesn't mean that it stays in place. They can overturn it. You can still oust him, et cetera. Boom, boom, boom. Also, anything that he does, if Trump ends up getting elected, it just gets to get undone in January. So the abuse of this power would be awful. It doesn't in any way allow the establishment of a monarchy, and Biden isn't going to go down in history as the enemy if he's the last president that exercises dignity in office and does not abuse power. That's not how you become enemy. But I see your point.
Yeah, my most succinct response to this would be one of the big differences in why people should vote, even if they are far left or whatever, is when there are loopholes and ways to cheat, the amount, everybody would say they both do it. And to some degree, they're right. But the amount to which they will both do it is different. There is a big difference between how much that power would be abused by Trump and how much it would be, if at all, abused by Biden. Jason says, bye, back to work makes Jason a good boy, and that's no fun. Still have to do it, though. I feel you.
Yeah. $10 from Pete. You convinced me. Harris 2024. I'm going to go consult an octopus. Okay.
That was when I said to go ask the octopus.
Octopus are really smart.
That's true. Orson Zed says, I guess I shouldn't have taken that nap. Biden should drop because no one who will vote for Biden won't vote for some other Democratic candidate, but dumbass vibe voters won't. It's true that he is not going to. I think it is correct that if he becomes the nominee, essentially all of the base that he already has. This is why we want him to drop, I suppose. He's not really going to, the people who were going to vote for Biden will almost certainly vote for the next person, but a new person would have the potential of changing more and swinging more people.
Yeah, I think Orson, this may be more important than anything that I said tonight, because absent actual data, just going with what I've seen lately, like, for example, the Daily Show clip where there were the 6 black voters and 3 of them, nothing we said was going to convince them to not vote for Trump at this point. And their reasoning was ridiculous and they didn't care about the truth. And so I think you're right. Anybody who's voting for Biden now is still going to probably vote for the Democratic candidate, but switching who the candidate is could win back some other people. Not that I feel like the right thing to do is to, let's exploit or tokenize or whatever else. But if you put Kamala up there, you may win back some vote that Biden isn't losing, which is why she's polling better, at least in one poll that I saw. But yeah, there may also be, some undecideds, because everybody who's like, oh, I don't want another octogenarian president, so I'm just not going to vote. If Biden dropped and Kamala takes over, and you've got Harris running and somebody as a potential vice president, you might pull in enough of the I hate Trump and Biden, they're both too old votes.
Yeah.
$5 from MKM, Midas Touch Network.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Midas Touch Legal Net, or Midas Touch Network Legal AF Truth is Golden. Okay.
Okay. There you go. Crinklebat says, what you're missing is $5. Here you go. You're right. You nailed it.
I was missing that $5.
Y'all can
but
super
now I have
comment
it.
that after too. Hell yeah.
$9.99 from Michael Farmer. I tried calling in, but never got through. Sorry. What you're not realizing, wink, is that if Biden stays in the race, all the coverage about his age may self-fulfill his election loss, much of it for clicks. Yeah, but it's like we can play what if on a bunch of this stuff. And it's like, oh, if all they talk about between now and the election is Biden's age. If I was Trump's team, I would not put Trump in front of a fucking microphone or let him talk about anything. And I'd pull him out of the second debate. That's what I would do right now. Yeah. And I would let everybody and encourage everybody to just talk about how the Dems don't want, even the Democrats don't want Biden to run, you know, and he's too old and all this other stuff. And Trump's best line during that debate, which, like, fuck it. It was brilliant. And it was well-timed, which I'm not used to from Trump, was I don't know what he said, and I don't think he knows what he said either. And then went on into an answer. Yeah. That was a boot to the head. And yeah, I mean, it seems like the smart play is just to keep doing that and allow other people to keep doing that.
As far as we can tell, though, the Trump, I mean, this is journalists have spoken to people from the inside and stuff. Trump wants Biden to be the nominee. There seems to be some indication that they even understand that they have a better shot at beating him than somebody else. Just me, the watcher, brothers versus brothers, sisters versus sisters, humans versus humans. It's saddening. Yeah. Yep. And the internet makes it a whole lot worse because even really awful people tend to, when you actually get face to face with them, become more pleasant to engage with. At the very
Probably
least.
going to butcher this, but $10 from Jatra Plastics. Love you both. Vote blue. Fair.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully I didn't ruin that.
Jared Rodenizer says, hey, Matt and Jimmy, first time catching live, Patreon supporter too. Just wanted to say hi, big fan. Thank you, everybody.
Well,
we'll try to get a new episode of the
live
podcast out this weekend. Very much. Yeah, we kept getting demonetized. Last week was one of the worst ones we had. But people, if you want to support, just so you know, now more often when we get demonetized, it's also being upheld after review, and it really fucking sucks. So, patreon.com/calltheline.
What's the reason?
I think that there were I don't know. I think that getting closer to the election, YouTube increases the amount of, two things. I think they increase the amount of adherence, and two, I think the amount of content dramatically goes up. So the amount of time you have to review goes down for the reviewers. So I think it's a combination of those two things, but I don't know what specifically, because it's also random ones. Like last week, it was a Sunday show, one of the Sunday shows, your show, TACIS, and mine and Forrest show got demonetized. And of those four, I think only TACIS eventually got approved, and the other three all got disapproved, which was, I don't know.
But like, so for example, I didn't know. I'd love to get to a point where we fix this so that nothing we do gets demonetized. I just, like, when my show gets demonetized, I don't hear about it, and I don't hear why. What
they don't tell us why.
They don't tell us why. So they just decide.
Review just says, yeah, confirmed by review is all we get. It's demonetized. I hit appeal, and then they come back and say confirmed by review.
Is it like, but it doesn't say anything like violating community standards, or it's just demonetized?
So usually there's I think there's often a link that will say like, here are what the standards for monetization are, but they're all very broad. And I've actually talked directly to YouTube about this because I've gotten to have a YouTube rep a few times over the years. I think we have one for the line now. I just ignore her emails. But even when you go to talk to them, they'll say a lot of like, we understand how frustrating this is, but them's the rules. So here's what it says. here's on the one with Forrest and I. Confirmed by review. First of all, ad suitability. This has been confirmed by manual review as not suitable for most advertisers. Learn more. And then that's a hyperlink that takes you to a place. Remains fully playable and eligible to earn subscription revenue from YouTube Premium. So basically, we can still make money off the people who are watching it who have YouTube Premium, but not ads, which is a much smaller amount.
This isn't a community standards thing. This is you guys are doing something, and our advertisers are essentially saying they don't want to support that. That's what.
But they have an automatic system to flag things for that. It's not as though the advertisers are flagging us for them.
No, but if the advertisers say we don't want to support any atheist content, and they just set up their script to say, okay, here's atheist content, or we don't want to support anything that speaks negatively about religion, and then somebody flags it. Okay.
So yes and no on that one. And the reason I know this is actually I got them to change their policy specifically on atheist stuff years ago. I did a video showing that if you put atheist, the word atheist, in the title, description, or tags, if you put them in at least 2 places, it would always flag for demonetization. I made that video. It got some attention. And then I took it to my YouTube rep, and they actually changed that specific thing. But it's an advertiser can tell them to avoid those things and not put the ads on different stuff. So someone could come in and say, specifically, keep me away from channels that are probably atheist channels. But they can't say demonetize an atheist channel. So it's more of there are general guidelines, of which honestly almost every channel violates some of all the time. And something has come along strong enough that the robots first tag it, which I think that our channel suffers from mass campaigns of reporting. But that's, I can't prove that, but I think that's what's happening. People are reporting it. It's getting then tagged for demonetization. And then the algorithm, the robot tries to figure out what clip might have been the thing that's given to a human reviewer. That's all the human reviewer assesses on and then says uphold it. That's how I understand
Arden
it.
a note. We need to go through my channel because I've recently, it's been monetized, but I haven't made anything off of it, but videos are going up monetized. And I don't think I've ever been tagged with a demonetization thing. I've never gotten a message, nothing on my personal channel. So we need to find out if maybe that's happened. And I just didn't know. But $5 for Monkey Typewriter. Here's my fix to voting. A Go Fish box, basically an option to tell the parties, no, go back and do better. But barring that, hashtag actuarial table 2024.
Jay says Project 2024 isn't just for Trump in 2024. They've prepared to have a playbook ready for every future election. This is a much bigger and longer fight. Yes, which means even if Trump says, I'm not for everything in there, the things he will do will make it easier for anyone who subsequently shows up. And keep in mind, even if he's not for everything in there, it's more important of whether he would veto a bill that comes with everything in there. And that, I think, is a much harder sell for him. I don't think he would veto it.
See, I don't think, let's say Trump has some disagreement with some policy, and I'm reiterating Jimmy's point, I just realized, but fuck it. There's no reason for his personal opinion to impact anything because it's all about power and machinations. And so he could and should just go along with whatever they do, just like he did when they basically picked his justices and stuff like that. So whatever Trump says he's personally opposed to, it'll never, you can't hold him to any of that because so for example, Joe Biden may be personally opposed to abortion, but he is pro-choice in what he's willing to support publicly. Similarly, I'm an atheist. I despise religions. I would never, ever outlaw religion. I would never try to end religion through legislation, despite me thinking that it's better. Even if the Supreme Court gave me that, incredible power like that, I'm one of the people, oh, wait, I forgot. I'm ethical. That's the difference. I'm not a 34-time fucking felon and who fomented an insurrection and stuff. But yeah, thanks, Jason. $10 from Becca. Coming ethical. Someone. What?
No, go ahead. You may
There's
pop the
there's
song
the
in my head.
delay, and so and I can't hear you. Coming
Yeah,
from someone with
probably.
a Trump-loving dad who sends me daily political memes, thinking I agree. Wow. Thank you both for educating, entertaining me, and proving that there are other sane people out there. Thank you, Becca. That's got to be rough.
Skeptalk says Project 2025 takes a lot of words to simply say 14 because they're too dumb to say the 88 they wanted to. Jimmy, go match yourself.
Go match yourself. You're gay.
Already. can't do it more.
$5 from Sapphic Bibliophile. Screw demonetization. Take my money. Yes, we will. It's one of the things that I've been really bad at over the years. I was bad at it when I was, it was easier when I was like with the atheist community of Austin because I was working with a nonprofit, and it's easier for me to ask for money for a nonprofit than it is to ask for money for myself or for a profit enterprise. However, I have no problem at all because there are a bunch of people who work their ass off here to provide good content, both paid individuals and volunteers, to make sure that the Line Network is consistently improving in quality standards, adding new hosts, adding new shows, trying to make sure that no matter how many times they might demonetize us, we're just going to keep on going. And so, yes, I will absolutely take your money and say thank you so very much. That's very kind of you. Jimmy, what did we learn tonight, and how do we wrap up a Cause I Wanna? Because I've never wrapped up a Cause I Wanna.
Well, what you missed was what we learned tonight is that you all should keep watching the Line. There are going to be clips up through the weekend, and on Sunday, is this correct? I'm with Paul on Sunday after dark.
That's what it
I feel
says.
like that. I thought I was with Eve this week. I'll have to double check that. Also, I don't know if I can make an after dark. But anyway, Sunday show for sure. I think that there might have been a mix up, but I could be wrong. And then
well, if you need a substitute,
John,
I'll find one.
Yeah, I don't, with the way things are lining up right now, I think I'd only be able to do the afternoon show, but I'll double check.
I might have to skip I'm going for oral surgery on the 23rd and getting back on the 24th. I should be able to do the show, but in case I can't, I might need a substitute type thing there. And then I'll be going for another oral surgery either in late August or September. So if you need me to do double duty on a Sunday, we can sort it out.
Yeah, that might be the Sunday. I'm with Eve the following Sunday. Anyway, we do shows and stuff, and honestly, we've been here for so many hours that if you're actually sticking around to write down the notes of what are the end of the show announcements are, well, I just don't believe you're really here. So, if reality, Patreon, these are patrons. Make the transition. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, everybody. You can go to patreon.com/calltheline.
There's Kathleen Moncrief and Steve Leonis and Kalenius and Morgan and Larry Fishman and Brian Zipkin and Kelly Evan and Olaf and Conrad and Paul and Jackie Greenland and Trent Oliphant and Jeff McKinney and Jared Double Dub. Galaxy Man 20. No, I can't do it. Damn.
It's
Patreon.com.